But did you know that Africa is the place where the body of the first man was found? My daddy says that makes it the place where all people originated from. I'm from Africa. You from Africa. You African booty scratcher. I'm
always reaching. We make niggas disappear like that triangle out Bermuda. They can't find his body, but they know that I'm the shooter. I say cut my sentence in half, and I spread a little rumor. Deal? Well, you can look in Oklahoma if you want to find them Sooners.
Now we're going crazy, nigga.
Yeah. Supernatural talk. Just left 8 Mile Rock smoking ganja. Manners. Starboy manners. Lifestyle, nigga. Live house, nigga. Hold up. I'm spitting this one from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, I ain't been giving a fuck about much. Yeah, I've been taking losses, I just leave it up with God. One of these days, it'll be just my luck. My favorite women don't want to have my G. Is it that they think I'm tripping or they don't think I'm lit? Might just call mommy up, fuck it, make a mix. Maybe we can make a twin. On the low, I did it big. From the water to the hills, blew a quarter head. Yeah, spent at least a 10 every trip. I might post up for a minute. I admit it, I'm fucked up by Jamaicans and Trinis. I can describe every shoreline in every city. Live house in the Caribbean, niggas feel it. 8 Mile Rock, Freeport got me litty. My Albacore mistress inspired me to get richer. When you building an empire, it might take a minute. Nigga, I did it twice, rebuilt it and relived it. Nigga, all my old members still the realest in the city. Only reason I don't be chilling, it'll be easier to kill me, you dead. I'm spitting this one from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, I ain't been giving a fuck about much. Yeah, I've been taking losses, I just leave it up with God. One of these days, it'll be just my luck. My favorite women don't want to have my G. Is it that they think I'm tripping or they don't think I'm lit? Might just call mommy up, fuck it, make a mix. Maybe we can make a twin.
Hard to believe pirates have attacked another American ship heading for Africa with humanitarian supplies, but this one narrowly escaped.
We were being hit by rockets, also bullets. It says we are under attack by pirates.
Like bang, 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 and everything was well. So I had heat exhaustion for 10 hours. That's what I remember.
The crew's gonna be rich soon, boys. Very stinking rich. That's what I wanted to hear. It's about time we all had full pockets again.
I need them bricks, eh? I need them bricks.
When Jess uses Bank Smartly checking and savings, we help her money work harder.
Same old phone? Nah. Upgrade to the new Galaxy Z Fold 7.
Muskogee Media presents What is the 1866 Treaty? In April 1861, the Civil War broke out in the United States shortly after President Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated president. This resulted in the withdrawal of federal troops from Indian Territory, which later became modern-day Oklahoma. The 5 civilized tribes were, at this point, well established in the territory, and the withdrawal of these troops put them in a difficult position. Soon, Albert Pike, representing the Confederate government, showed up in the territory to secure agreements with the tribes. While other tribes, such as the Choctaw and Chickasaw, were united in support of the Confederacy, the Creek Nation was divided, with almost an equal number of troops on both sides of the war. April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant, effectively ending the Civil War. September 1865, the federal government and the 5 civilized tribes met to negotiate at the Fort Smith Council. Commissioner of Indian Affairs Dennis N. Cooley informed the tribes that because they had sided with the Confederacy, the tribes had forfeited their rights, annuities, and land claims under previous treaties. The federal government was going to ignore the fact that 3 of 5 tribes had been divided in support of the Confederacy. New agreements would have to be drafted and signed, and the federal government required certain provisions in each treaty. The treaties would grant amnesty for crimes committed against the United States during the war, but required that the tribes abolish slavery, incorporate freedmen into their citizenship, and give up part of their lands for other tribal settlement. August 11, 1866, the Creek Treaty was signed and proclaimed. The ramifications for these agreements would last for over 150 years. Before Europeans stepped foot on the North American continent, southeastern tribes had already established a long history of capturing enemy combatants in raids and utilizing them as slaves. These slaves were sometimes incorporated into the tribe through intermarriage and tribal ceremony. Generations of literal and later ceremonial combat between tribes and tribal towns led to an intricate web of intermarriages and adoptions that formed the basis of the importance of the Creek tribal town and clan affiliation that citizens continue to this day. Indeed, an argument could be made that this process eventually led to the formation of the Creek Confederacy and its required political and familial agreements and alliances. Up until the 1866 treaty, some freedmen, as well as Europeans and members of other tribes, had been incorporated into the Creek tribe through these traditional methods. It is important to recognize a distinction from this cultural practice and the economic model of slavery that was introduced to Native Americans by European contact, which emphasized the utilization of humans as property and part of a business model. With the signing and ratification of the 1866 treaty, freedmen became citizens in the Creek Nation, regardless if they had been assimilated into the tribe by traditional methods or not. It is this distinction between the methods of obtaining membership for freedmen that has resulted in the long and bitter fight to decide the citizenship of the Creek Nation. Even now, legal battles are fought over the application of the 1866 treaty with the Creeks in regard to citizenship as well as tribal jurisdiction. At the United States Supreme Court, the validity of the 1866 treaty is a key element of the Muskogee Creek Nation's argument for expansion of the tribal jurisdiction, even though the Muskogee Creek Nation Constitution does not allow for freedmen to be citizens of the tribe, a requirement stipulated in the treaty. Forged in the Civil War Reconstruction effort, the 1866 treaty continues to be a firebrand in relations between the 5 civilized tribes, freedmen, and the federal government.
I hope it's upheld. I hope that we keep citizenship as it is, by blood. It's a full citizen, so that means I'm above a quarter. And that's also in our Constitution. To hold elected office, you have to be a quarter above. And I've always agreed with that. Of course, there's problems with this new form of tribal government. One thing, when the 1979 Constitution was ratified, they took out the House of Kings and they took out the House of Warriors. And I always thought that was a mistake. But this was never our form of tribal government. It was forced on us. If you look at our history, every treaty was a handful of people to sign it. They were intimidated, bribed, and none of them were upheld, no treaties. And this one that the freedmen are using to get citizenship, it's in 4 days, it'll be 152 years old. So how far do we go back? Every single one of them has been violated. And like I said, it was always a handful of signers. It was never every town in our Confederacy. When it was the full council, you can look in our history, and they never agreed on any of these treaties. Most of them were land cessions, starting back in Alabama and Georgia. And Then up until post removal, there would have been, I guess, two. One before the 1866 treaty, where Seminoles got their own they were under the Creek Nation at one time, but that one gave them their own constitution. I look at it as, from the beginning, what Creek people were, who we were, where we come from, and anybody who ever came into our nation. I mean, even on our rolls now, go back to the Dawes rolls, we had Mexicans on our rolls, we had adopted whites, and then, of course, the Freedman rolls. But when you go to the Dawes rolls and look into that history, that was a mess in itself. There was no Bureau of Vital Statistics. There was no official birth certificates. What you had were people going around asking questions. And most of them back then, the Freedmen, they did live around Creek people. They did speak our language. So that's how they identified themselves. Now, they might not be born to a Creek parent, but that's just what they told them. And there was really no investigation into that. That's in, you can look that up, and that's how they formed these roles. And it was no secret that outsiders, they wanted to be on these roles, because when it went from the breakup of our communal land to individual allotments, that's why they formed the rolls. And people wanted to know, how can I get this land? How can, we got 160 acres, 40-acre homestead, and 120-acre surplus land. But even on those rolls, there's errors. I've built a database for the tribe at one time, and to be an enrolled citizen, we have to prove by blood. So there can be no holes in our ancestry. If you're missing birth certificates, then you're not going to be able to be enrolled. And when you look at the Freedman census cards, you will see errors on their census cards. There's question marks by their parents, and then all of a sudden it's listed Creek as their citizenship. But if that was our case in our genealogy, we would not be able to be enrolled. So no, that's just some more errors with that came along with the whole Dawes Commission, the rolls, and but in the end, I would like to see our Constitution upheld, the 1979, even though there's errors in that. There's even, you look at this U.S. Constitution, there's still debating different laws that have stood since 1776. During the Dawes Commission, at one time, our National Council did issue a resolution stating that they didn't think that the Allotment Act was in the best interest of Creek people. And I personally would like to see our council do the same on this lawsuit, because I don't think it's in the best interest of our nation to add all these citizens. I like it how it is, citizen by blood. We all have to go through that process. And even back during the Dawes days, there was, full-blood Creeks who missed out on citizenship. And I'm sure there was some freedmen, who did have Creek blood who probably missed out on it too. But, that was 156 years ago. They did get land. They received a lot of land. And I'd just like to see our 1979 Constitution upheld. It's still premature. As far as we know, they have not been served yet. We've kind of read over the case file that they filed. I did contact the nation about it, and the word I received was that they will challenge the suit. And there are other tribal nations who Freedmen have won the case, and they do have citizenship. The Seminole Nation, they were the first ones, and then recently the Cherokee Nation, and now in 2018, the Freedmen are filing against the Creek Nation. But the word was RAG will challenge the suit, and that was good news. I was happy to hear that, and we'll be paying attention, and we'll see what happens. I'm not a lawyer, so all I can do is I hope that anyone ruling on this, whatever federal judge gets this case, I would hope they would listen to us and realize that our sovereignty is based on our heritage, and this would change that in so many ways. We could go on about that for a while, but true sovereignty is being able to make our own constitution, pass our own laws, and even nowadays, a non-native can take me to tribal court and sue me, and they have, and they won. Can I take a non-Creek to our tribal court? No. Can our light horse arrest a non-native? No, they can't. So to me, there is no sovereignty. There's a limited sovereignty that we have, but it's not true sovereignty. And I think if this 1866 Constitution, or the articles that they're using, if those are upheld, I think it would just be another kind of historical trend that's been going. We've always had land taken. We've always had our rights given to us through the U.S. However you want to put it, bureaucratic imperialism through. So yeah, we'll see what happens. The way I look at it is not really like that. Like it's nothing against anyone black or anything like that. I just look at it as this form of tribal government was thrown on us. It's something it's just what we have. We could replace all of it, and I'd be fine with that. But that's not going to happen. And like I said, we have our citizenship requirements. Here we are. We know this Constitution was passed in 1979. To me, the freedmen, once they were freed, they were no longer, they were kind of their own people in a sense. Nowadays, people I don't see it as them being born into freedmanship, or however you want to put it. We are, though, we're born with tribal ties, or however you want to say it. We're born with clans, or everyone that's Creek has a town that they belong to. And to me, that's what federal recognition is based on, that an individual tribe has their language. They have unique ways which are different from other tribes. And so that's the way I look at it. It's not anything against them. The ones that do have Creek blood, let them in, because we don't have a blood quantum requirement to be in our tribe, and that's something we've all had to do to get citizenship. I mean, I was originally enrolled in Alabama Quasarty, and before the Creek Nation, and there was errors, and so they booted me off their rolls, and so I'm in the Creek Nation. So that's one thing that I think anyone that's against it, it's not a racist thing. I would hope they don't look at us like that. And I'm not going to make one of those generic statements. People say, well, I got black friends and this, and but it's nothing against anyone personally. It's what we have. This is our Constitution. This is our tribal form of government that we have. So we got to do the best we can with it. And that's the way I see it. A lot of the comments and things on social media and posts, and even some of the documents that I've read, it kind of makes it seem like the whole tribe were slave owners, and that's inaccurate. All my grandparents were full-blood Creek except for one. We were not slave owners, and a lot of families were not. And I would hope that's something that that the public knows, that not all of us were slave owners. And historically, it never mattered, even during the Creek War or whenever the Civil War, when Creeks were involved, everyone was punished. Even in the Creek War, our own people fought against us, but after the Creek War ended in the Treaty of Fort Jackson, we all got punished, and even the ones that fought for the U.S. And the same with the Civil War. It didn't matter that some fought for the Union, some fought for the Confederacy. Everyone was punished equally, and the same could be said with the ones that owned slaves. During the 1866 treaty, not everybody owned slaves, but we were all punished, and they were incorporated into the tribe through that treaty. So
I believe either way you put it, it doesn't matter which way he said, she said. Overall, to me, a descendant of the Freedmen, or even back then the Freedmens that are listed on the rolls, no matter how you put it, they're not Muskogee by blood. My understanding, they were a part of, back then, tribal towns, living amongst those tribal towns, and obviously in the homelands, and came over to the Trail of Tears along with our people. I believe it was in when they started making the Dawes Roll, after the 1906 and after Oklahoma became statehood. You know, there was a long period between that time until 79. And so these, their grandfathers or grandmothers may have known the culture, Muskogee culture, and language and ways of then, but the descendants today don't. And that's a long period of time between 1906 to 79. And then you don't hear from that until 79. And I believe in the 90s they tried, early 2000s, some of the Freedmen tried again. And it was my understanding that Muskogee Creek Freedmen Band applied for federal recognition. And I don't know what the outcome was, but I can assume that it was, they were denied. I haven't heard anything since then. If they were approved, we would more than likely heard something today. And now they're trying again to become recognized as citizens of Creek Nation, not only citizens, but full citizens. You know, like I said, my deal on that, as a citizen of Creek Nation, I hope that the tribe, the chief, gets his team together and fights the case, and overall we win the case. I know the race issue has been coming up on the Freedman side, stating the tribe is prejudiced and racist towards them. You know, there are citizens that we have today that actually traced through the Freedman rolls to get to the Creek by blood Dawes Roll. Back then, I mean, it still is true today, but when the Dawes Roll was created, matrilineally, if the father was by blood and the mother was African descent, you know, those children would have been listed on the Freedman rolls along with her. We have citizens today that trace through the Freedman rolls and prove that their dad was on the Creek by blood Dawes Roll. So we do have citizens today that are citizens due to that. So for me, that rolls out the race card. And that answers whether Creek Nation is racist or not.
Well, my whole point on the situation is, for one thing, you know, our ancestors back then, you know, accepted them. You know, they were a lot of them on the Trail of Tears. You know, a lot of them intermarried. You know, they had children. A lot of them are mixed bloods. You know, and it was kind of a probably, I guess you'd say, an honor. You know, to be accepted like they was. You know, and to ask them to go use the United States of America, that put us on the Trail of Tears. Let's not forget that. To show proof, to go by their scale of yes, you're an Indian, is a shame. It's a shame. You know, we shouldn't even have that ourselves. You know, here we are in 2018, and we're still declaring who's a native by their guidelines. You know, by their proof. You know, and here we are. You know, we call ourselves American citizens. I don't, but people call themselves American. They fly the flag at Creek Nation. We don't even know who we're part of. We don't know who's the enemy and who ain't. And they sure ain't the Freedmen. We're trying to tell them who they can be a part of and who they ain't, which our ancestors done said they could be. And we're calling ourselves American citizens, flying a flag above Creek Nation that invaded us and massacred over 100 million of our people. And then they want to say, you know, it's about the veterans. No, 5 of my uncles were veterans, Vietnam. My grandpa was World War I, Korean. You know, that flag ain't got nothing to do with them. That flag, you know, represents 13 colonies. The stripes, the stars are a scoreboard as they took our land and invaded us, and took over us. Now we call ourselves a part of them. And now we want to tell the Freedmen they can't be a part of us. We don't even know who we're part of. And we want to use their system of, yes, you're an Indian, to make these freedmen prove who they are. That Dawes Rose means nothing to me. It's just a number, just like the Holocaust. They put it on their card. We wear ours in the back pocket. I don't. I buried mine in my backyard, you know. I'd have burned it, but I might get some free cheese one day, so I might go excavate it, you know. Otherwise, I'd have burned it. But it's just a joke. But you know, to me, I talked to some of the freedmen, and I don't see why you even want to be a part of Creek Nation. Hell, you're free, you know. It means nothing. You know, it's a Holocaust number. You know, it's what it was in the beginning. Now we're still today using that and we got to look some of them are mixed blood, you know, and you can tell they are, and we're going to look them in the face and tell them, you know, Whooper DC said you ain't. You know, I know you are, but they got paper over there that says you ain't. You know, they can't prove it. You know, so we're going to just go ahead and just turn our back on you. That's not our way. That's not the Creek way. You know, one day we got to meet the ancestors, the one that we know is Creek, and you're gonna face them, and you're gonna pull your little card out. They're gonna slap it out of your hand. Did what you got. You ain't got a heart. Talking about want to prove who you are by blood. That ain't about blood. That's by ink. That's Creek by ink. Put that Creek by blood. That's Creek by ink, by their ink, their paper, and that's a shame that we're gonna use that. That sets precedence that we acknowledge that they know they decide who we are. I mean, we're so wrapped up in brainwashed. Like I say, we don't even know who we are. We got an American flag up there. It was flown over 100 million of our ancestors when they was murdered. Trail of Tears, same flag. And we pledge allegiance here, I heard, during the oak tree. The last one, they had a pledge of allegiance. Here, right here on this land. Right where we came out of Trail of Tears. That's how mixed up we are. That's how brainwashed we are. That's who we are. I guess if you lose your card, you ain't Indian until you get back $5 and get down there and get your new one. I guess you ain't Indian for that drive, whatever it takes, however long you lose it. You got laminate, sacred laminate, you know, sacred card. You know, it's what it is, you know, what if we went to the old way? What if we said, okay, you gotta have scratches. There's my card right there, scratches, still scratches. The scratches from ceremonies. Not that card. But so many people now today, they flash that card around. There's I'm Indian, look right here. They're Indian. They gotta reach back here, you know, to show everyone that they're Indian. And that's where we're lost at, you know. And you know, to me, it's just a shame that we want to go back to that. It's kind of like going back in the civil rights days. You know, here we witnessed this. You know, at the beginning, we were savages killing us. You know, we didn't want to be a part of them. You know, we put us off in the reservations and everywhere else. You know, and then the civil rights, that era. It's like that's what we're doing now. You know, it's kind of like we're too good. I mean, I don't know if that's what you want to call it, but is it because of the cheese? Is it the cheese? I don't know. I guess it's the cheese. You know, I don't see no problem with them, you know, putting them on the road, give them something. You know, it don't matter. I guess we're fighting over cheese today. But at the end of the day, you know, it don't look good. You know, it don't look good on you know, to our children that, you know, you know, to turn your backs on them. You know, that they're not good enough. Let's look past the laminate. Look past that number. You know, we got too many numbers anyway. We got roll numbers, chart numbers, social security numbers, phone numbers, lotto numbers, you know, DOC numbers, all these dang numbers. But you know, just gotta look past that laminate and look at who we are as humans, as people. You know, we're all brothers and sisters, you know, and look past that laminate and let them be a part of us. You know, they are a part of us through the Creator, but we've forgotten that. Now, I guess you know, it's about the casino. Ever since the casinos and money come involved, now you got tribes all over this country right now kicking out members. You ain't enough. You ain't enough. You know, it's because you don't want to share enough. You know, and it just goes back to just like our quarter. You got to be a quarter to run for council, and now they're worried about them going to run. You know, and I ain't even thought about that yet. I haven't even thought about, you know, to let them run, you know, this, that, you know, there could be no negotiations, you know, it ain't just a flat deal, you know, and, but we're already prejudiced against our own people, you know, divide and conquer. We divide and conquer ourselves now. That's how good they are at divide and conquering, is that now we use their system to divide ourselves with the people we know are our family. That might be Chief Floyd's cousin. He's going to tell him he ain't Creek because America said he ain't. You know, knowing he is, you know, that's a divide and conquer tactic. And they're good at it. And they're real good at it. We do it now to ourselves. And that's a shame. You know, that's a shame. Just like the quarter deal. You know, I can't even run for council. But yet I'm a council member of Ojibwa. The Ojibwa Hickory Ground. They don't even ask for your card. They don't ask for how much you are. You know, it's kind of I can run for senator. I can run for president. America treats me better. But I'm 4 different tribes, so I'm not a quarter of Creek. But yet America, I can run for senator and president. They treat me with more respect than my own tribe does. You know, you got to be a quarter. It's about making money up there. You know, they have got to the point where they think it's about culture up there. It ain't got nothing to do with culture up there. That's a money-making place. Culture's down at the grounds, ceremonial grounds. If you're talking about culture there, you're wrong. The mound, don't let that mound fool you. It's fake. You know, and I'd rather have, you know, 12 Africans or whatever, Indonesians, anybody. As long as grandma's got a brand new pair of Jordans on, full tank of propane, a ride to the grocery store, and a ride to healthcare, I'm good. Rather than have 12, you know, quarter bloods over there, and grandma ain't got no shoes on, grandma ain't got no propane, grandma ain't got no ride to the hospital. I'd rather have 12 Indonesians sitting up there. Grandma got us all that. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's about making money, you know. But yet, that's the way we are today. You know, brainwashed and messed up.
'66 treaty. The district court isn't the proper venue. All right, guys, welcome to Muskogee Media's update on the Freedman trial that's going on in the district court right now. That's Rhonda Grayson and Jeffrey Kennedy versus the Muskogee Creek Nation Citizenship Board. If you guys have any questions while I'm doing my recap, just pop them into the chat and I'll try to get to them. So kind of the reason we're doing it this way for this particular case is because I'm going to go through my notes because the district court doesn't allow any recordings or anything like that in the courtroom. So all you can do is have a notepad and a pencil or a pen and write down what you can see and hear. So that's what I did. In fact, right here in the window, right here, is the district court's website. I'm going to pop that up and just go through some of the court rules here. So you can see on the front of their webpage, they have a announcement saying that the trial is going to be Tuesday, April 4th through Thursday, April 6th. And the court's going to be in session from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. they're going to allow 150 to 200 persons to be able to watch. And it says live stream here, but what they mean is they're just putting the video and audio feed into the council auditorium chambers, in the mound. So the big council auditorium, they're going to let people go in and sit in there and watch it on the big screens that are in there, which is what I did today for most of the trial. So let's pop this back up. So we talked about the court rules that don't allow any recording. So what I've got is my notes here. I'm going to go through what I saw that happened and talk about some of the testimony and the legal arguments that were presented today. There's one more thing to do before I begin, is to do a little disclaimer. The assistant attorney general in this case, one of them, there's two. One of them is Clint Wilson, and he is my brother-in-law. I have not discussed this case with him, but in the interest of transparency, just to tell everybody, I'm related to him. So, but we haven't ever talked about this case or anything related to it. All right, so I don't see any questions at this point in the chat, so I'm going to barrel on ahead here. What is this case and what was it brought under? It's basically individuals that can trace their lineage back to the Creek Freedman rolls, were denied citizenship through the Muskogee Creek Nation Citizenship Board. And they went through all of their administrative appeals, and now they've filed a judicial review, or a judicial, what's the word I'm looking for? A judicial appeal for the Citizenship Board's ruling in their case. We're going to get more into that in just a minute when we're going through the Muskogee Creek Nation AG Jerry Wisner's opening statements. But chronologically, the attorney for Ms. Grayson and Mr. Kennedy is Demario Solomon Simmons, and he had the first opening statement. So Demario's opening statement introduced two legal arguments that they're going to operate, the plaintiffs are going to operate under for this case, right? The first one is the argument that in the 1866 treaty, Article 2 of that treaty basically says that, I've got it right here. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to pop that up. So this is from the Tribal Treaties database at the Oklahoma State University Library. Treaty with the Creeks, 1866. The article we're looking for is right here, Article 2. Okay. The Creeks hereby covenant and agree that henceforth neither slavery nor involuntary servitude otherwise than in the punishment of crimes, whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted in accordance with laws applicable to all members of said tribe, shall ever exist in said nation, and inasmuch as there are among the Creeks many persons of African descent who have no interest in the soil, it is stipulated that hereafter these persons lawfully residing in said Creek country under their laws and usages, or who have been thus residing in said country, may return within 1 year from the ratification of this treaty, and their descendants and such others of the same race as may be permitted by the laws of said nation to settle within the limits of the jurisdiction of the Creek Nation as citizens thereof, shall have and enjoy all the rights and privileges of native citizens, including an equal interest in the soil and national funds, and the laws of said nation shall be equally binding upon and give equal protection to all such persons and all others of whatsoever race or color who may be adopted as citizens or members of said tribe. Okay, so that was a big mouthful, but basically it's saying any Africans that were slaves or anything like that, they're automatically members of the tribe. And the 1866 treaty, if you remember, this is the treaty that was upheld at the Supreme Court through McGirt, okay? In the description for this video, there are some links to the previous coverage on this case. There's a link to a video we did on the 1866 treaty that kind of touches on this issue a little bit. And then there's also a link to an interview we did with Judge Patrick Moore, who, disclaimer, is my father, but he was the judge in a previous Freedman case that's mentioned in this case with Ron Graham. So go check that out after you watch the video, if you need more information. So the argument here is that the 1866 treaty made the African American people who lived in this boundary Creek citizens, right? And then later, when the Dawes Roll came in, well, let me get to that part in a second, because DeMario also says that in his opening statement that their first witness they're going to call is Carla Pratt, who is a constitutional law scholar, and we're going to talk about her in just a second. So that's the first argument, is the 1866 argument, and that it supersedes the Constitution of the Creek Nation. The second argument that's put forth in there is that, so that's where we start talking about Title VII and this B, judicial appeals. I'm going to pop that up on the screen for you. So what this is the Title VII covers the process of becoming a citizen and all the things related to citizenship. The judicial appeal section here is what you can do if you've applied for citizenship and you've been denied and you've gone through all of the review hearings and everything else. The final thing you can do here is this judicial appeal. I'm just going to read it really quick because it's kind of important, because this is what the case is actually filed about. This case is a judicial appeal of the Citizenship Board ruling. So these are the rules that this particular case is going to follow. The courts of the Muskogee Creek Nation are hereby granted exclusive jurisdiction over all disputes relating to, arising under, or in conflict with this title. After the applicant has exhausted the administrative remedies of the Citizenship Board and a final determination not to enroll the applicant has been made, the applicant shall have the right to file an appeal of said decision in the Muskogee Creek Nation District Court. All that stuff has happened. The applicant shall serve notice of the appeal to the chairman of the Citizenship Board or his authorized representative at the Citizenship Board offices. In hearing the appeal, the Muskogee Creek Nation District Court shall give proper deference to the administrative expertise of the Citizenship Board. The Muskogee Nation District Court shall not set aside, modify, or remand any determination by the board unless it finds that the determination is arbitrary and capricious, unsupported by substantial evidence, or contrary to law. Standard procedures of the Muskogee Creek Nation District Court, including the right to appeal to the Supreme Court, shall govern all proceedings. Okay, so what am I talking about here with that? The key parts here are the Muskogee Nation District Court shall not set aside, modify, or remand any determination of the board unless it finds that the determination is arbitrary and capricious. And that is the second claim that Mr. Solomon Simmons makes in his opening statement. Is he's got the 1866 argument here, and he says also we're going to prove that these denials were arbitrary and capricious. Okay, so that's what the core of their side is going to try to prove in this trial. Okay, and then at the end of his opening statement, he said they're going to call Carla Pratt. We'll get to her in just a second. So then after he does his opening statement, Muskogee Creek Nation Attorney General Jerry Wisner gives her opening statement. In her opening statement, she points out that this is a judicial appeal, just what I've just pointed out to you guys, and that she also mentions that the issue with the 1866 treaty, the district court isn't the proper venue, or this judicial appeal is not the proper venue to argue that part of the case, which is her opinion. She says that in the case for both of these individuals' applications, the election board followed the code that's on the books with the Creek Nation. So they reviewed the evidence that was given to them by the applicants for their citizenship and found that it didn't meet the requirements that are in the Constitution or the code. And so that's why they did their denial. She also referenced the Ron Graham case. And again, there's a there's a link in the description of this video that talks about that, where we did an interview with the judge in that case about that case specifically. So if you want some more information, you can get it right from the horse's mouth there. What else? She mentioned that the Citizenship Board is going to testify to what they did in this case, and that their actions were not arbitrary or capricious. So that's opening arguments. Let's move on to Carla Pratt. Carla Pratt is an OU law professor who has a long history in constitutional law and civil rights laws. You can see here she is the Ada Lois Sipwell Fisher Chair in Civil Rights, Race, and Justice in the Law. And if you want to look this up, you can just search Carla Pratt there, OU, and you can read this whole article with her. They've asked her some questions, but it lists some of her qualifications. She's looks to be very qualified for this. She is also teaching constitutional law, civil rights, race in the law, and professional responsibility amongst other classes at OU Law School. So she was the first witness called because, and this was the first point that was brought up with, she was hired by Mr. Solomon Simmons, the plaintiffs, to compile a report to examine the Muskogee Creek Nation Constitution in relation to the 1866 treaty and see if those two things are in conflict with each other, which she found that they are. She was paid for the report, but her testimony today was pro bono, according to her testimony. So what was the testimony? What did it centralize on? Ms. Pratt basically talked about the historical process of the Dawes Roll and how, from the federal government's perspective, because at that time they were operating under the one drop rule that said that if you had any African-American ancestry, when the Dawes Roll was reviewing your status to give you your Dawes enrollment card, they would put you down on the Freedman side, right? The objective of which, from her testimony, is that they're trying to break the tribe up as much as they can, and also they saw that was the prevailing, even though it was after the Civil War, there was still a prevailing attitude in society that African Americans were less than Native Americans, were less than white people, right? So but for the other thing that she wanted to point out in her testimony is that because the way that the Dawes Roll was conducted, right, she said that there's almost every guarantee that the people who were applying and got put on those Creek Freedman rolls would also be African Americans who were in the Creek country when the 1866 treaty was signed. So she's saying that if you're on the Creek Freedman rolls, you're basically guaranteed to be one of those African Americans that are supposed to be tribal members based on what the 1866 treaty was delineating. Let's see here. What else? Her testimony also, under cross-testimony or cross-examination, she admitted that she didn't know the name of the various courts in the Creek Nation. She didn't know that the Creek Nation had a Supreme Court. She said she assumed that there was the district court and then an appellate court, which is what the Supreme Court would be. We've got some questions popping up in here. I'm going to get to those questions in just a second. She said she wasn't familiar with the previous Supreme Court rulings on Freedman's citizenship that have gone through. This is all under cross-examination from the AG's office. She also said that whether there were rulings previously with the Muskogee Creek Nation on this issue or not, those rulings would not supersede the treaty that the Supreme Court, the Creek Nation Supreme Court, would have to follow what the treaty said anyway, because it is the law of the land, like the quote from the McGirt ruling. Let's see what else I got in here. Let me look at these questions really quick. Citizenship board, not election board. Oh, did I say election board? Election board. If I say election board on accident, disregard that. So everything I'm going to say is going to be citizenship board. Thanks for catching that, TY Pro. Did Washington, D.C. create this treaty, then pass on to the tribes? I think the question there that you're asking is, what was the negotiation position of the tribes in relation to the 1866 treaty. And the testimony that was given by Ms. Pratt was not good because the Civil War had just ended and they didn't have any leverage to do it. In fact, the whole delineation of Creek Freedman and full-blood Creeks or what, all of that stuff was set forth by the Dawes Commission, and they basically kind of had to accept those types of classifications or they weren't going to be able to work forward from there. Her testimony on the rationale for why Article 2 was in the 1866 treaty, right? Why was it put in there? Was so that the Indian Territory and the Creek Nations territory would become congruent with the rest of the United States after the passing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, right? So they couldn't have slavery, and it was possible for African Americans to become citizens where those places were. So those amendments got rid of slavery and made African American citizens and so on and so forth. So it's what she's saying, the methodology for the 1866 treaty in Article 2 is to try to get those things to be the same, right? Let's see. T.Y. Pearl says the treaty doesn't require citizenship, only that if given citizenship under the laws of the Muskogee Nation, they must receive full citizenship status. Well, I don't know. I'm not, like this, that's one of the questions that would probably come before a Supreme Court somewhere, either ours or the United States Supreme Court. As far as for this case, though, I'm going to keep on going. If there's any questions about anything that I'm saying, I know I'm kind of talking a little fast, but I got to go a far way here to get through all of the testimony today. Let's see here. Okay, so one of the lines of questioning under cross for Ms. Pratt was, what did she use to compile her report that allowed her to draw her conclusions? She mentioned that Mr. Wilson from the Citizenship Board had done a deposition, right? And that she had seen that information. I don't have access to that because what's going to happen with this case is we're giving you guys daily updates with what happens in the court. After the judge issues their decision, we can get all the paperwork and it will have all of the evidence submitted in the case. And we're going to get that to you guys. We just don't have it right now. So that because it hasn't been made, we can't get it unless we're a member of the case. Let's see here. Where are we at? But there is a deposition out there. Okay, she wasn't familiar with Harjo versus Kleppe. If you know about that case, you will know what I'm talking about. But by her analysis, the MCN Supreme Court decisions aren't relative to the Constitution either. There was also a line of questioning put to her about whether she studied how the MCN Constitution was created and voted upon. She said from her that didn't factor into her analysis because she's taking the Constitution as it stands today, and whether it conflicts with the 1866 treaty, how it was developed in her opinion, wouldn't have any reflection on whether they're conflicting or not. Let's see here. Tribes have a right to self-determined enrollment. Oh, that's just a statement. Status pending approval of Constitution. Oh, we're going to get to the Department of the Interior in just a second, T.Y. Pearl. Don't worry. So, in fact, I might as well do it now because that's the next thing on my list. So another line of questioning for Ms. Pratt was, if the Constitution of the Creek Nation conflicts with the 1866 treaty, didn't this Constitution have to be reviewed by the head of the Department of Indian Affairs, right? So the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, had to review this Constitution and approve it because that's the standard practice. And she said yes, and it was reviewed and approved. And in her opinion, I guess the director, who would it be? The person in charge of the BIA at the time that signature was done didn't do their job because they should have told the tribe that their Constitution was in violation of the treaty.
This is her testimony, just to clarify. Let's see here. Okay, so after Ms. Pratt's testimony, I think I've covered all the bases. Let me look really quickly. All right. Now, Ms. Pratt also said that in her opinion, the Citizenship Board did follow the MCN Constitution, right? Her thing is that the MCN Constitution conflicts with the 1866 treaty. But so we've got well, I'll get to that in just a moment. The next two witnesses that were called were the plaintiffs in the case, Jeff Kennedy and Rhonda Grayson. They both were asked about what they submitted, the materials that they submitted, and their appeal process, how they filed everything. They pretty much did what they did. Their problem and their denial letters were all based on the fact that they submitted descendancy from the Freedman rolls, right? So that's why they got denied. They filed a bunch, each of them filed extra supplementary information because they were making claims under the 1866 treaty, right? So they filed extra stuff to try to push that case to the Citizenship Board to say, hey, you know, everything that Ms. Pratt and all of the stuff we've talked about, that theory is what they submitted a bunch of extra material to there. The court day ended with, because it was getting close to 4 o'clock, the AG, Creek Nation AG, hadn't done their cross-examination of Miss Grayson. And rather than start their cross 10 minutes before 4, they elected to pick that up the next day. So tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and if you're in the area and you want to go to the trial, you're interested in what I'm saying, you can. There was a lot of space today. If you're familiar with the council house or the Mound Auditorium, not the council house, the Mound Auditorium where the National Council meetings are, that was about a third full today, so you could probably easily get a seat. So if you're in the trial will start at 10 a.m. and it'll run till 4 again. Today's testimony in the court today, there were some little hiccups. The court reporter got sick and they had to get a new court reporter, and sometimes the video dropped out or the audio dropped out. But all in all, it was pretty good. Let's see here. I'm going to look and see, why don't Freedman petition the feds for CDIB cards? That's a good question. I would ask them that. I think that you can't get, let's see, the CDIB, that the argument for the 1866 treaty, right, wouldn't have anything to do with CDIB cards. The argument is saying that we don't have to show any degree of any blood. The treaty is what makes us tribal members, right? And Ms. Pratt's testimony also kind of delineated some of the stuff because the Indian agents that conducted the enrollments for the Dawes Commission and everything, they also had basically free reign to visually look at you and make a determination outside of any documentation which side you're on. So or which role you would go on. So that's also a wrinkle in this. I'm gonna, at this part of the stream, let me see here. Does Grayson and Kennedy living outside the jurisdiction impact their standing to sue? Does Freedman citizenship exist under the treaty outside of the res boundaries? Well, just to clarify, this isn't really a lawsuit. That's why let me pop that up here. Where is it? This thing? No, this thing. This is a judicial appeal of the Citizenship Board's ruling, right? So that's basically anybody, and jurisdiction doesn't really come into it, right? They've already applied and been denied. they're looking for the court to try to either remand that decision back to the citizenship board to say, hey, take another look at this. Or what are the other options here? Set aside, modify, or remand any determinations. So the judicial appeals section is basically kind of delineating right there what the court can do. Let me highlight that for you guys so you can tell what I'm talking about here. By the board, this is the part. So the court, so when those three things the court could do if they found that the determination of the citizenship board is arbitrary and capricious, so that the district court could set aside, modify, or remand those determinations, right? And I don't think it's probably not limited. I mean, who's to say what the court could rule? But we're going to get into that now because I'm going to talk about some projections of what I think is going to happen. This is just my opinion from having seen these other cases. And also kind of what the court could do. So if you watch the video in the description on the Ron Graham case, in that case, what happened? So this same or a very similar claim was filed and it was heard in the district court. And the district court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, in favor of Ron Graham. But what the district court ruled was that they remanded the decision back to the citizenship board. So they told them to take another look at it, right? Now, in that case, the citizenship board didn't take another look at it. They appealed up to the Creek Nation Supreme Court, and the Creek Nation Supreme Court issued a decision in the case where they overturned the lower court's ruling, but they did not publish an opinion on it. They just overturned the lower court's ruling, but they didn't. There's no opinion attached. It's just a one-page thing, which is a little strange. But and that's on the. Let me bring that up. I don't have that on here, and I'll bring it up for you guys real quick. Creek, Supreme Court. Whoops. Let me try again. Creek. There we go. So if you go to the Muskogee Creek Nation Supreme Court's website, right? You go to opinions. Let's see here. We can go down and find that case. Let me bring it up on the screen here really quick. So many opinions. Let me go to the bottom here. National Council. So the it'll take me just a second, but we can actually take a look at the order. I should have queued this up before we came in. Election board. Or maybe it's not here anymore. Here it is. Ron Graham versus Muskogee Creek Nation Citizenship Board. Let's take a look at that. Here's the briefs. Let's look at the order and opinion. Here it is. Well, why isn't it? Well, just a second, guys. You can see that. Oh, here we go. I stand corrected. They did issue their opinion. So this is the previous case that I mentioned. You guys can go to that link and pull all this stuff up and read through this. This case is the precedent that the AG's office was mentioning in the cross-examination. Let's see here. What do we got? Any questions? The plaintiffs in this case lack standing and their argument lacks any semblance of credibility or merit. No, I think that this is a procedural hearing basically, right? So they're still in the realm of within the framework of the Muskogee Creek Nation Code, right? Within the framework of Title VII, what Mr. Solomon Simmons has to prove for his clients is that the Muskogee Creek Nation Citizenship Board acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner in denying his client's citizenship. That's what he's got to do. The 1866 argument doesn't really apply in this case, in my opinion, just because it's not an open lawsuit and so on and so forth. But I'm not the judge, and the judge can rule whatever the judge feels is appropriate to rule. I would say that I have not seen anyone be granted citizenship by the district court in this manner, in this type of a hearing, right? So, and at the end of the testimony for Mr. Kennedy and Ms. Grayson, Mr. Solomon Simmons asked them what they wanted to see out of this case, and both of them said what they want to see the court do is to honor their claims of citizenship. I don't know if the court is able to actually do that in this type of a hearing. I think the most that the court can do is what they did in the past with Mr. Graham's case, is remand it back to the citizenship board and say, look at it again. And then we basically kind of start that process all over. But like I said, I'm not the judge, and who knows what decision we will see. But when we do get it, we're going to publish it. We're going to show you guys everything that the court decided. And there is also, just like it's outlined here in Title VII, standard procedures of the Muskogee Creek Nation District Court, including the right to appeal to the Supreme Court, shall govern all proceedings. So appeals to the Supreme Court, I think, will be incoming whichever side wins this. If the Citizenship Board is told that they have to look at this again, they will probably appeal to the Supreme Court. And on the same hand, if the court says that the Citizenship Board acted correctly, I would expect to see Mr. Kennedy and Ms. Grayson appeal this to the Creek Nation Supreme Court. And if they don't get the decision that they want from the Creek Nation Supreme Court, I imagine they're probably going to go up to the federal level, so, and beyond. So let me look here and see if there's any questions that I could answer that are in the chat. Play this in case. Piers, Grayson, and Kennedy were born before the 1979 Constitution. Were they or their parents enrolled prior to 1979? Both of them are, the paperwork that they filed with their application was genealogical research that they had done, tracing themselves back to individuals on the Creek Freedman rolls, okay? As far as the status of whether their parents were enrolled, I'm not for sure on that, but we will be able to see, I assume we will get all of their administrative paperwork because it was being used today in court. After the case is over and the decision comes in, those things should all be included in the exhibits for the case. So we can go back through there. Like I said, I should mention this too. During Mr. Kennedy's testimony, so I was watching the case in the auditorium, but during Mr. Kennedy's testimony, the audio on his mic went out, so they moved all of the media guys into the courtroom so we could hear what he was saying. So there was some testimony that I missed while we were doing that exchange, and maybe he delineated that during that part. I'm not for sure, but we're going to get that information to you. Do you mind giving your name? I have been impressed with your knowledge of this. Well, my name's Jared Moore, and I announced it at the start of the stream, and you could see me here on all of these live wires and everything else. I do want to mention to you guys, one of the other reporters covering this is Allison Herrera, and I think that the Frontier, or maybe it's KOSU, maybe it's Frontier, is sharing all of our coverage on this. So I talked to her tonight, and tomorrow we're going to have her come on, and she's going to be kind of like a guest because she's in the court with me too, and we're just going to kind of like talk about it, talk shop on it from that standpoint on what she's seeing too, because she's not involved in the tribal law and the politics and everything as much as I am. So yeah, I'm Batman. Yeah, my friend, I'll say this, T.Y. Pearl, Jason Salzman and I worked on the television program for a long time, and that's what he used to tell everybody is that I'm Batman with no budget. That's who I am. I'm Batman with no money, right? So, do you guys have any other questions? This is your last chance to pop something into the chat. Tomorrow, the cross-examination of Miss Grayson is going to happen, and I imagine the next witnesses to be called for testimony is going to be the individuals on the citizenship board. After that testimony is had, I'm not for sure who else they could call or anything like that. I don't expect us to see chief or second chief or the AG or somebody like that get called because they're just not involved in this process. And like I said, this is a judicial appeal to an administrative process. They don't have any say over what the citizenship board does anyway, honestly. So from my perspective, and I don't see any more questions, but I will see you guys back here tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. We're going to pop the link up probably about noon. And if you're watching this and it's not live and you have a question about this case or anything like that, you can go to our link for the live stream before the live stream starts, and you can put your question into the chat. And that when I come to start the live stream, I'll see it in there, and we can do that deal. We'll ask your questions if we know the answer. I'm just a reporter covering this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm related to a lot of lawyers, though. That's the problem, you know. So there's a lot of lawyer jokes that I know that I can't tell anybody. But Mado to you guys for tuning in. And with that being said, we're at 6:38. So, geez Louise, thought I could do this in 15 minutes, but I was wrong. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. And chihitchoth, Lees.
This $400 power mood base with wireless remote and LED lighting for safety, free with any select Queen Mac.
Okay, welcome back, guys, to day 2 coverage of the Freedman trial. And this is going to be the final update because the trial wrapped today. So joining me today is Allison Herrera. She is the Indigenous Affairs reporter for KOSU. And you also do a lot of freelance work, right?
I'm currently working on a podcast for Bloomberg and iHeartMedia called In Trust.
Awesome.
Which is about Osage Nation's mineral and head rights and how Osage land ended up Osage land ended up in non-Osage hands. That's the easiest way to put it.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
And for you guys, I'm going to go the same thing that we did yesterday. I'm going to do today. I got a couple of disclaimers just for if you're tuning into this live stream. So on the MCN AG side of the case, the Assistant Attorney General, Clint Wilson, is my brother-in-law. I have not discussed this case with him in any way or anything. So, but that's just in the interest of transparency. I am related to him. So and that was a disclaimer we also did on the previous day's coverage. Let's see. The reason we're doing it this way is because the court doesn't allow any electronic recording devices or any type of recording devices at all in the courtroom. So we can't show you any actual video from the trial. So it's just me and my notepad and writing down what happens, and then we go through it. At any time while I'm going through the chronological events, if you have a question, Allison, just feel free to jump right in. And then after I get through all of everything that happened in court, we're going to have a little discussion about the political ramifications of the decision in this case and where it could go from here and those type of things. So to start off with, we left off yesterday with the AG was going to cross-examine Miss Grayson. So that's the first thing that happened. there wasn't really any new information introduced from that cross-examination. Ms. Grayson was asked why it took her so long to apply for citizenship and et cetera, et cetera. And she said she's been working with her Freedman group for the whole time with various people trying to get citizenship. They also, she admitted that when she applied for citizenship, she used the Freedman roll, not the Creek by Blood roll. But that was basically information that we already had from the previous statements. And so nothing new really in her cross-examination. Then they moved on to Mr. Solomon Simmons called Nathan Wilson, who is the director of the citizenship office, basically. He's not on the citizenship board. He's the director of the department. And just for the audience, in case you don't know, there's a board for citizenship that makes all of the decisions about citizenship, but there are also a department underneath them that the functionaries, they help people with their research and things like that to get them citizenship, and there's office managers and all that stuff. So there's a separation there, though. None of those guys that are like the director or the managers, they don't make the decisions on who gets citizenship. The board does. So he was called. Also, and I'm just going to list the people that were called to the stand from the citizenship office, because their testimony is all functionally the same by both parties. Mr. Solomon Simmons and the AG, they both asked, what criteria did you guys evaluate the citizenship on? And they were all of them were very careful to say that they were not rejected based on the fact that they were submitting their
At Cox, we're always a step ahead. Like how the price of your plan won't go up for 3 years. Guaranteed. That's refreshing. Ooh, s'mores.
Lock the price of your plan for 3 years. Just another way we keep you a step ahead.
Lineage back to the Freedman rolls, they were rejected because they could not show that they had a lineage to the Creek by Blood rolls. So that was the information that they were trying to get across. But they called Nathan Wilson, who is the director. They called Leonard Gouch, who's on the citizenship board, but he wasn't at court. So instead they called Leanne Nix, who's on the citizenship board. They also called, let's see here, just moving down, Andy Proctor, who is the office manager for the Jinx citizenship office, the office in Jinx there. All of them gave the same testimony. The only wrinkle there was when Nathan Wilson was on the stand, and he told Mr. Solomon Simmons that there were other applications before this case where people had referenced the 1866 treaty in their attempts to get citizenship. And he said that they had consulted with the AG's office, and the AG's office had told them that they should follow the MCN Constitution and the code. So that's basically what all of the testimony was there, is that you have to trace your lineage back to the Creek by Blood rolls, and anything else, they don't consider it. And they never received any training on the 1866 treaty. They weren't given any instructions to consider it, etc. So after those witnesses were called, they moved to closing arguments. So in Mr. Solomon Simmons' closing argument, there are a couple of wrinkles here, but he maintained what he stated in his opener, which was that the 1866 treaty is the law of the land. Now, we spoke before in the previous live stream that he said that, and Allison, just one moment, I'm going to click this other tab here that has the Title 7 for the audience. So we spoke before that Title 7 was mentioned. And in Title 7, it says that the court can only remand any determination by the Citizenship Board unless it finds that the determination is arbitrary and capricious. And if you guys remember, I was saying that DeMario has to prove that, right? That's one of the things he has to prove for his case. So with that being said, in his closing argument, he addressed that. So how he addressed that is he's saying that since the 1866 treaty is the law of the land, right? The 1866 treaty should be the relevant law to consult for the citizenship board, right? And since they didn't consult the 1866 treaty, that is why their decision was arbitrary and capricious, because they, instead of the code, he's saying that the 1866 treaty has supremacy over the code. So that's how he kind of closed that loop that we were talking about, where it's like, how is he going to do that? So from his perspective, that's how he did it. When it switched over to MCN Attorney General, not Roger Wiley,
Jerry Wisner.
Jerry Wisner, thank you. I had a brick wall there. Ms. Wisner's closing arguments centralized on this, and this is an argument you'll hear in relation to the Freedman issue a lot. So her argument is the code has supremacy, and the reason is the Constitution was authorized by the Indian Welfare Act. Okay.
The Oklahoma
Yes,
Indian Welfare
the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act. So what she's saying is Congress passed the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act, and that gave tribes the ability to self-determine and write their own constitutions, and that's why the Constitution should be followed instead of the 1866 treaty. So with that in mind, DeMario, so after she was done, DeMario got a moment to rebut what her closing statement said. And he got up and he pointed out some Supreme Court cases that delineate the little wrinkle with that, which is one of the things that was mentioned in McGirt. And also, let's see, what's the other one? I'm going to pop this up really quick. Allison, just where is it?
You do you.
Well, I'm sorry you can't see this either, but this is for the audience. So in McGirt, one of the things that they stated was that the abrogation of a treaty by Congress must be clear. They must be specifically doing that. There have been other cases before the Supreme Court, such as this case that's on the screen here. Let me just pop it up. United States versus Dion. And which Mr. Simmons also mentioned, says we have required that Congress' intention to abrogate Indian treaty rights be clear and plain. There is also another one, Minnesota versus Millie Locke's Band of Chippewa. But so what Mr. Simmons is saying there is that you can't, or from his perspective, his argument is that you can't abrogate the 1866 treaty with the Indian Welfare Act because it's not specifically, the language of that act does not specifically abrogate that, okay? So let me see, does that bring us to the end? The judge said at the end of the trial that she knew that people wanted the plaintiffs wanted her to rule from the bench on this matter, but just like with the motion for summary judgment that was done in December in this case, she said she's going to consider the issue, she's going to do it as fast as she can, but she's not going to rule today. So with that being said, Ms. Herrera, do you have any questions?
Well, she said she's not going to rule today, but my question is, when is she going to rule?
Yeah.
And then my further question would be, depending on how she rules, what other tribal remedies does either side have in this case? Because one of the things that struck me when I was listening to yesterday's testimony is that there was a lot of, for a case that's really, that's basically an administrative appeal. That's really
right.
A case that's about, I don't agree with what the Citizenship Board did. I don't agree with their decision. I'm appealing this decision.
Mm-hmm.
The case is definitely one to me, and I think Angel Ellis, our colleague, said is very much an advocacy case to make, and so I'm wondering if, what remedy both sides have, and for a case that's, supposed to be just about an administrative appeal. It seems like the plaintiffs really want this case to end up before a federal court, and because they want to exhaust all of the tribal remedies.
Yes.
And so when I was listening to that yesterday and listening to the frequent mention of the 1866 treaty and Article 2, I immediately thought about it. Like, he wants this to be on the record so that if the judge rules against the plaintiffs, then this case can go to a federal level.
Right. I think you're spot on with that strategy.
To look up at the nighttime sky is to become a part of a long line of people throughout human history who looked above at that same set of stars. It is to witness time unfolding.
We got a question pop up here in the chat. I'm just going to read it from T.Y. Pearl. Have the plaintiffs in the case ever applied for CDIB cards through the BIA? Now, I don't know. That wasn't brought up and wasn't asked in the trial in any way. I don't know if they could. I personally just don't know if they could get CDIB cards through the BIA. I'd have to pull the regs on what they can apply for. Do you know, Allison?
I have never heard of that before. A CDIB card, from my understanding, is one that is always issued by a tribal nation. You have to prove, you have to prove your lineage. You have to prove your heritage. Your descendants need to be able to get that. The only thing I could think of is if you're a state recognized tribe, or if you're then you get. But that, again, that's not a CDIB card. You get there's a letter that you would get from the BIA,
right?
But it's not a CDIB card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how that would work out. So this is something that, the A.G. Wisner presented her closing argument where she cited the Oklahoma Indian Reorganization Act. And as she was going through it, this occurred to me about just the strategy of that argument. And when DeMario asked for time for a rebuttal, I was like, oh, he's going to bring it up. And he didn't bring it up. He brought up what I mentioned, the other Supreme Court cases that talk about the abrogation of treaties through United States Congress. But this is also an argument that could be made from that standpoint, is that because the Oklahoma Indian Reorganization Act argument is an argument about sovereignty, saying that this is tribal sovereignty, right? But you could make the argument on the opposite side of that to say that the act of signing a treaty, right, is like one of the ultimate acts of a sovereign. It's two sovereigns signing a contract with each other, and the damage that would come to your sovereignty from reneging on one of the contract there, that's basically the motivation for the Supreme Court's decision in the United States position on McGirt, is that, we're not going to damage that. We can't damage our treaty making process. If we become internationally unable to make treaties, we can't do anything, right? And that's something that Mr. Solomon Simmons didn't bring up, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, how is that going to work if the court rules in favor of the argument that the Oklahoma Indian Reorganization Act or Indian Welfare Act did grant tribes the ability to, in some way, abrogate portions of treaties or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, how will that reflect on all of the other legal precedent that's going on with all of the other and unheard of yet lawsuits and court cases that are going to stem from the McGirt decision, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think, I think another strategy from the plaintiff side is that they are also, I went back and I was reading my notes in preparation for this live stream, that they are, I think they're pretty smart to bring up the McGirt decision, because the McGirt decision references that same treaty and made a decision based on that treaty, saying that, it was the supreme law of the land, and it proves that, Muskogee Nation's, Congress never disestablished the reservation. So if the defendant, if Muskogee Nation can rely on that, and put forth that argument, in front of the Supreme Court, then how come they can't, what would make, why then is the Constitution in conflict with the treaty? I mean, I felt like, Professor Pratt yesterday did a really, I learned some things during when she was laying out the history about, the Dawes rolls and, the Freedman rolls and the by blood rolls, and then how, I think a really great point that she made is, under the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act, yes, tribes were able to make their own, were able to write their own constitution, throw off the yoke of the United States. But that constitution still has to be approved by the Department of the Interior.
Right.
And I could see, I could also see, Mr. Simmons writing, writing a letter to the Department of the Interior. I'm not, or, somehow, obviously like getting them involved in this case. That would be going to the federal level.
Well, and any of those executive branch actions are reviewable on the judicial side, through all those levels. The Freedman issue too is, and for the audience, there's a link in the description of this video to the video about what is the 1866 treaty. And at the end of that video, we kind of touched on that, and it was before the McGirt decision came through, but it was during that period where it was being argued. And I think it was actually when it was the previous case. But that was one of the things that I pointed out in that video, is that there is other stuff in the treaty in relation to the Freedmen specifically that
Airwick Essential Mist Diffusers perfectly portable, quick change fragrances make any space fragrant and inviting.
Your phone becomes more like you with each piece of personal data you store. Private data, fingerprint scans, face scans, personal apps, and passwords. With all the personal...
What effect is that going to have on the tribe, even if they win this case, right? Or, because the 1866 treaty has things that the tribe agreed to at that time, and that we don't agree, that the tribe currently does not agree to, right? And so what's the impact going to be there? And a lot of people in the legal community, when the McGirt decision came down, were talking to me, and they were like, well, the tribe's got a problem now because they've got to get caught up with this, like the citizenship and other things is not kosher. It doesn't match up with the 1866 treaty. Let me check and see. I think I've got some questions here in my chat. Tribes do not issue CDIBs. That's correct, TY Parole. But that's why I was saying, like the federal government, though, I'd have to pull the federal regs on what qualifies for an application there. I don't think if you're on the Freedman roll, you can get a CDIB. I don't see how it would be possible. Treaty doesn't require citizenship to be given, only that if citizenship is granted under the laws of the Muskogee Nation, they have to be granted full citizenship. Change my mind. Well, I don't have a position on it one way or another. And the federal government is going to probably get involved in this case after it goes through all of the tribal courts, unless there is a scenario where the district court affirms that the 1866 treaty should be considered. It's appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court changes its precedent, and at the Creek Nation Supreme Court changes its precedent and says, yes, we're going to consider the 1866 treaty and the Creek Freedman rolls in addition to the by blood rolls or something like that, or the Constitution of the Creek Nation could get amended by citizens. Those are all possibilities.
I was just going to say, I could see the judge saying, you need to go back and fix the Constitution, or you need to go. I wonder. Maybe this wouldn't happen, but this would be a scenario. The judge would say, okay, I'm going to rule, I'm going to say you need to go back and you need to fix this 1979 Constitution that you wrote and passed and got approved to incorporate the language of the treaty. And I could see then the tribe maybe going to the voters and or putting this to council, putting this to the voters, and asking them what how they should act. I mean, when I've spoken Principal Chief Hill, he's always maintained like this is something for the citizens to decide. Like I can't make this decision. And I think that is, I think that's something that they are probably going to have to do. They're, no matter how this case gets decided upon, I think that there definitely needs to. I think that there should be, and there probably will be some, discussion within the Muskogee Nation about Freedman citizenship. And Muskogee Media you guys did that great video. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago where you talked with 3 citizens and asked them their opinion on Creek Freedman citizenship, and 2 of them explained why they didn't think it was a good idea, that we're a sovereign nation, we don't want the federal government telling us like who can and who can't be citizens. And then you had that one person at the end that was like, they should be citizens, like what we should make our own, really putting forth the case that like, yes, we are sovereign, like we have the ability to do this, we should be able to admit the citizens in the tribe. And so I guess I'd be curious to hear from you, Jared, like what you've heard from citizens about this trial and what they think should be done. And I've some of my time preparing for this trial was spent on Twitter and hearing from Muskogee citizens who feel like the nation needs to do the right thing, like admit them as citizens. They're part of the tribe. I heard Rhonda Grayson talk yesterday about America Koki, her ancestor, and how she spoke Creek, and she does language classes. I think like that, making this case that we've always been part of the tribe. So
right, yeah. That video that you referenced, the Creek Freedman video, it's on our YouTube too. And I want to mention really quick, T.Y. Pearl wants me to talk about the language of Article 2, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, T.Y. Pearl. That video actually came because we were contacted by citizens through social media saying, hey, Muskogee Media isn't putting our voices out there and everything. We're like, okay, great. Let's schedule a time. We'll do those interviews and put that video together. So as far as what it sounds like the question is, if there was an amendment today to do it, which way would the vote go? I actually don't have any idea which way it would go. My instinct is to say that they wouldn't vote for it, right? But who's to say? I've been surprised in the past, and there are a lot of citizens now who know more of the history, who do see that there is a problem with the way things were done, right? But it's one of those issues. It's also like the blood quantum and full citizenship issue, right? There are a lot of citizens who know the history and everything, and they're like, we need to get blood quantum out of the tribe, like out of the Constitution altogether. And then there are other citizens who for whatever reason, maybe they don't know any of the history, or they think that the blood issue is like some type of science or something like that, that they want to keep it in because they're like, we want to keep our full bloods and et cetera, right? So I don't, and who knows which way that vote, if that came up as an amendment, I don't know which way that would go. There are a lot of citizens that are also like the at-large citizens are a big voting block now, right? So who knows which way they would go with their voting, because a lot of this is also tied in with the politics of ceremonial grounds or where your tribal town is, right? And so that once all of those citizens that have been disconnected from that, it's going to affect how they see this issue even more so. But let me jump over here because T.Y. Pearl's, this is something that he's brought up several times. I'm going to look at, it's T.Y. Pearl is what his screen name is. So he's brought this up, and he's saying Article 2 states, as may be permitted by the laws of said nation to settle within the limits of the jurisdiction of the Creek Nation as citizens, right? Let me bring this up full screen. So, and he's saying that part of the treaty, it doesn't say that the tribe has to give them citizenship. It's saying that it can.
I've heard that argument before as well.
I've got the language up on the screen right now. I'm going to read through it, and we'll see if we can find if there's anywhere in there that's explicit, right? Article 2 says the Creeks hereby covenant and agree that henceforth neither slavery nor involuntary servitude otherwise than in the punishment of crimes whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted in accordance with laws applicable to all members of said tribe shall ever exist in said nation. And inasmuch, oh, well, hold on, let me break right there. So that part is pretty clear. It's saying that the Creeks are entering a covenant to not have slavery unless it's a punishment of a crime. Okay, there we agree on there.
Okay, you got it.
I'm thinking of buying a house.
A house?
By yourself?
Are you sure? I don't know anyone that owns a house.
Yeah, girl. I mean, it's a big commitment.
Hey, if you can make it work.
And just so you know, I'm going to scroll up really quick. I'm getting this from the Tribal Treaties database from the Oklahoma State University Library.
I'm reading the same one.
All right. Okay. All right. Here we go. Where were we? And inasmuch as there are among the Creeks many persons of African descent who have no interest in the soil, it is stipulated that hereafter these persons lawfully residing in said Creek country under their laws and usages, or who have been thus residing in said country and may return within 1 year from the ratification of this treaty, and their descendants and such others of the same race as may be permitted by the laws of said nation to settle within the limits of the jurisdiction of the Creek Nation as citizens thereof, shall have and enjoy all rights and privileges of native citizens. Okay, so there is in there, you're correct, and it's part of that saying that may be permitted by the laws of said nation to settle within the limits. But you got to keep going, because later on it says shall have and enjoy all rights and privileges of native citizens. That's pretty explicit. It's saying that they shall have them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, prove me wrong. or what did you say there, T-April?
Yeah.
Change my mind. change my mind. Or it's not my mind, change the treaty's mind. That's pretty clear. I'm going to go ahead and finish out the section there. Including an equal interest in the soil and national funds, and the laws of said nation shall be equally binding upon and give equal protection to all such persons and all others of whatsoever race and or color who may be adopted as citizens or members of said tribe. So it's pretty cut and dried there. It's saying the tribe agrees we're not going to have any slaves, no more slaves. Anyone of African descent that's living, let's see here, lawfully residing in said Creek country, they shall have and enjoy all rights and privileges of native citizens, including equal interest in soil and national funds, et cetera, et cetera. So
and my question then to I wonder if then, going back to the 1979 Constitution, what was the motivation then, if the treaty is in conflict with the Muskogee Nation's Constitution, what was their motivation to say that citizenship needs to be based on the Dawes, of lineal descent, on the by blood, on the Dawes rules, that you have to show, your descent on the by blood rules rather than the Creek Freedman rules. I wonder what their motivation was for that.
Well, you'd have to basically, ask everybody who is alive. In fact, that Jason has on the Muskogee Pod a good podcast about with some of the guys who were instrumental and created the 79 Constitution. So go check that out. They don't really talk about this issue, but if you could find as many of those architects and people who constructed it for the vote, right, and ask them what the motivation was, and if they wanted to tell you that, that what it was, because I can tell you from all of the stuff that I've seen, the 1866 treaty was way far in the rear view for a lot of people at that period, right? That it wasn't something that was mentioned in any of the literature or anything like that. I don't know how much knowledge there was about what it actually said, because the tribe had been operating on its own without any federal help or anything recognition.
I was just going to say, you have to remember the time that that treaty was written. I mean, when the time that that constitution was written, like, tribes were still coming out of this era of like not having anything, like you said, not having any, operating under these old constitutions that, really didn't, permit them to, I think, exercise their full sovereignty. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, and even the testimony and T.Y. Pearl's kind of talking about right now, that the Constitution had to go through the BIA and they had to sign off on it. And
that was my next question.
Miss Pratt's statement was, she thinks that was a mistake, that the tribe should have been told it's in conflict with the treaty. And not for nothing, she's probably 100% right on that front, is that the tribe should have been told about the 1866 treaty. Hasn't been anybody in we have some history stuff on our From the Vault about that period. Nobody mentions the 1866 treaty. Until the run up to the Murphy case, pre-McGirt Murphy case, that's when people started coming out of the woodwork, and also the Ron Graham Freedman case, people were talking about the 1866 treaty. So they might not, the powers that be might not even known about it. And and if you look at the narrative in this case too, this is the other thing, because this happens a lot at the Nation that I have seen. So you have two stories that are coming out of both sides. The plaintiff side is saying, we applied for something, we applied for citizenship, and we gave extra information, right, to try to educate the officials about this thing. And in the testimony today, all of the election board officials, right, they all testified. I don't know anything about 1866 treaty. I wasn't told anything about 1866 treaty. I wasn't given any training on the 1866 treaty, right? They were familiar with the Creek by blood rules because that's what they were told you are to use, right? And the Constitution, the code told them to do that. So from the plaintiff's perspective, right, Miss Grayson kind of said this. She was like, I assumed that they would take this new information and it would be evaluated.
That this would be something that they would want to know about.
Yes.
And Mr. Kennedy
and the testimony on the other side from the election board officials, they all testified, we weren't going to look at that at all. We don't look at that. It's not what we were told to look at, right? And it's irrelevant. It's like if you brought them evidence that you were a citizen of McDonald's. That doesn't mean that you know what I mean? From their perspective, they're like, what's this McDonald's? I don't even know what this is, right?
And that's what makes, at the heart of this case, it's to them, it's purely an administrative matter. It doesn't have anything to do with the treaty. It's like, these are the rules that I follow. These are the things, they could have been probably reading from like an employee manual or like a job description saying like, these are the rules that we follow for citizenship. And this is how we do it.
Well, and some of this litigation could have been circumvented, right? Because in the testimony we heard today, we know that the director of the citizenship office, what's his name?
Nathan
Wilson, I think.
Nathan Wilson.
Yes. He spoke to the AG about this matter. So, and I'm pretty sure the AG can do this, but I'm not, a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure the AG could have gone to the Creek Supreme Court, right, and got a ruling on this issue so that she had a Supreme Court thing to take back to the citizenship board and say, we've brought the issue to the Supreme Court to get an opinion. This is their opinion about it. And then the lower court litigation and all those things wouldn't have to happen if you already had a Supreme Court opinion about it. And that's something that could have been filed in absentia of any case, right?
Yeah.
So and that's.
Let's get it. When I catch you off, shuffle dribble, it's me. He worked hard.
But that wasn't done.
I mean, we talked about this yesterday. This is just, just an observation. It felt to me very much like that the the AG Weisner, that the Muskogee Nation didn't seem as prepared as they should have been in arguing this case. I mean, that is just like from the cross-examination of Dr. Pratt. I remember, Clint Wilson asking, Professor Pratt, how, when she was asked to be a witness for the plaintiffs, and it seemed to me like they didn't have enough time to depose or prepare for them to depose her and prepare for their cross-examination, as we both saw yesterday, where Solomon Simmons objected to several questions about when he asked her about did she know anything about the creation of the Constitution, and it felt very like they wanted to be able to dig into some of that, but then maybe we're not as prepared as they should have been to ask those questions.
Right, absolutely. Well, that's what it seemed like, and there was a lot of kerfuffle about the discovery in this process after that December hearing. That reminds me, I was going to show you guys. And Allison, do you know how to look up cases in the Creek Nation District Court?
What you have helped to educate me.
All right. Well, I'm going to do it for the audience right now.
Can you please tell the audience?
Yeah.
Because as somebody who's not a Muskogee Nation citizen who wants to know what's going on in Muskogee Nation Court, I would love to have a tutorial, Jared.
Okay. So here's how we do it. I'm going to open a new tab for the audience, you guys. You go to creekdistrictcourt.com. court.com. Let's see if that works. Yes. And then you'll get to this page. So when you get to this page, you go to court. Let me make this a little bigger. It's kind of small. You go to court calendar at the top. You click that. This page will come up telling you have to log in. All you need to do though is just click this little button. There's no actual login. You'll get to this page. At this point, you're like, what happened? Did it break? You need to go up here to searches at the top. Actually, I didn't make that full screen. Let me back up because I didn't have that full screen. Sorry, guys. Creek District Court, court calendar, login button, searches, case searches. Now, if you know the people that are in the case, you can go to by party, and then you put in this information. Like, for instance, we're talking about the Rhonda Grayson's case, right? So I'm going to put in Grayson, Grayson, and then in first name, I'm going to put in Rhonda, Rhonda. And then we hit enter. And you see here, the case comes up at the bottom. If you click the case number, it will bring up this page that has all of the information on the front page about when the case was, when it was filed, what type of case it is, etc. If you want to see all of the events that have happened in the course of the case, you need to go over here to the ROA here in the bottom here. You click that. This has everything that's been filed in this case. Now, we were talking about kerfuffle about the discovery, right? So I'm going to scroll down here. Here you can see request for recusal, order of recusal. So somebody left the case. One of the previous attorneys left the case. Notice of appeal. Order denying petitioner's notice of appeal. Citizenship board request for scheduling order, etc., etc. Let's keep going down here. Oh, so much stuff. Here we go. So we have motion to compel defendants' discovery responses. We have, they were going to call principal chiefs to the stand, but it got quashed. Quash means they're not going to do that. They're quashing the subpoena.
And again, that goes to, I think, the high profile nature of this case, or Mr. Solomon Simmons really making a discovery hearing would be one of a very boring thing to pay attention to. Like, normally you wouldn't go out to the courthouse to cover that. But I think, again, part of his strategy is to make a big deal of those
Yes,
things, and
yes.
and then also say, oh, we're gonna subpoena the chief, but like you can't
Yes.
really do that because he's not the one that makes those decisions.
Well,
So,
and if you wanted to find out why the court, well, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead, but you see all of these things that were filed, guys. If you want to get the actual paperwork from each of these things, like this order denying plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and denying plaintiff's motion to strike defendant's surreply, if you want to read that, you need to print this list off, right? Highlight the stuff you want, bring it down to the district court, and then
the moments that last forever go beyond what we see on the court.
You are the Finals MVP.
NBA 2K26. Ball over everything.
PlayStation. They will have you pay an amount of money to have it printed, right? And then you can have that and read it. And there's, as you can see, so many filings in this case. We didn't go over there and pull all of these filings, right? We didn't go through and find out like these discovery requests and things. And there's also there was a discovery conferral agreement, right? Plaintiff's motion for discovery conferral agreement. And that was ultimately, I think that was ultimately agreed upon, which just means that both sides are going to have a meeting where they're going to describe what they're going to do in their discovery. So the discovery was kind of fought over a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But that's how you get documents out of the court. It also is how, if you're at home, and so for my process for you guys, I'm going to keep checking this and calling the court every day that the court's open and asking them, has the judge issued a decision in, let's see here, what is it? CV 2020-0034. When they say yes, I'm going to go over and get a copy of that decision. But if you're at home, you've seen how to log into this. That when that order is filed in the computer system, it'll appear on this list, right? So at that time, you'll know, okay, the decision has been made, the order has been published, and you could even go down and get one. There is a lag from when, the reason I call the court every day is because there is a lag between when the judge will actually make the order and publish it, and then it gets entered into the computer systems. They got like a stack of papers that gets entered in. And so sometimes it won't appear on the computer system, but you can go get a physical copy. So that's why I call them every day. And if you want to call them every day, knock yourself out. So, but that's basically how this court stuff works down here. Sometimes, I don't know where are we at? We're at 43 minutes. We should probably wrap. I was going to go into a discussion about how sometimes the things online in their court system will be different from what's actually filed at court, but that's a whole nother can of worms dealing with the DUI story. Let me check and see if there's any questions here. TY Parole is he has a lot of statements here. You guys should go check out the chat. He's flaming hot mad about it.
What is he mad? What is he mad
well,
about?
he might be right. I don't know, but this is what court is for, you know. Is he's saying it's in there's let's see, let me back up here. May be adopted, not shall be adopted. The treaty is not in conflict with the Constitution. That's why it was approved by the BAA. They have no case, so on and so forth. So if you guys want to get in there, go for it. And then we're going to have
maybe we should have a citizens forum on this, Jared. Maybe we should host a.
I would love to, and I would love to do stuff like that. The problem that we have with doing things like that, Allison, is, and this came up when the Freedom of the Press bill was going to go, the vote on to allow citizens to vote on the amendment was going before council. We got cease and desist because there is code on the books at the Creek Nation that Muskogee media is not allowed to do any political process, right? Like we can report on candidates and stuff like that, but we can't give any opinions or host anything where people are giving their opinions. That type of thing. It would be something where ideally we would want to get it cleared through the AG's office, or if Muskogee Media had an attorney, run it through them and everything before we could do anything. So
I think that T.Y. Pearl and other citizens. I think that's a really great dialogue to have within the nation. And I think speaking as maybe I'm speaking out of turn here. I'm a non-citizen, but
you are a native.
But I am native, and I have I've listened to other people talk about this issue, and I think some people feel like that it gets unfairly categorized as a racial issue. And I'm not saying that maybe some people feel otherwise, but I have heard people say, I don't think that this is a racial issue. This is simply an issue of our sovereignty, and that's really important to me. I think that's a valid opinion. And then to hear Grayson and Kennedy and others like Ron Graham talk about their family and how they helped build this nation. Even I've talked with Choctaw Freedman, I've talked with Chickasaw Freedman, I've talked with Muskogee, with Cherokee Freedman, who feel like they have a stake in the nation as well. And I think this is an issue that even if the judge rules against the plaintiffs, it's not an issue that's going to go away. And I can guarantee you in other tribal nations, it's not going to go away either.
Yeah, it'll keep coming back up. There are.
Raising the next generation is a big job, but feeding them well, that should be deliciously simple. With Go Macro, there's a nourishing option for every appetite. Clean, delicious, and nothing less. Just real food that supports what really matters.
Even beyond this particular Creek Freedman group, there are other national Creek Freedman groups that are even more, they're getting funding and stuff. They're going to bring cases. So the group that's in court right now is the Spear Tip. They're not the back of the shaft or anything. This case is going to get heard and heard and heard, even if it goes to United States Supreme Court. And somehow the whatever decision comes down that reaffirms what the Constitution or whatever says right now, they're going to keep filing. So they're
going to keep going. Yeah, we're going to keep going at it. And I think, which is why Ron Graham said to me yesterday, he's like, I would rather us settle this in tribal court rather than go to the federal court, because he's kind of likened it to this is like a family. He's like, it's a family squabble. Why would you go else? You would solve it within the family. And I don't know how other people feel about that, but that's something that he said to me yesterday that really stuck with me.
Yeah. And that's also an aspect that you don't see a lot in all of the filings and everything. We should wrap up, but I'm going to want to touch on one more thing, is that, in any type of movement, you have several fronts, and the legal front is part of it, but there's also should be a community outreach front where you would expect Freedman groups to go into these communities and try to build these bridges and have this dialogue outside of the court, outside of the government, just socially, to say, hey, can we count on your support, or what can we do, to mend whatever fence has been broken or whatever, right? Because it's not racial argument. There is also a component where, just like we're talking about it right now, what we don't see a lot of, right, are Creek citizens at these protests, right? And it's not because some people wouldn't go. I'm assuming it's because they're not being contacted. There's not that coordination between the Freedman groups and the citizens that are citizens already, right? And that's something that I would expect to see built up. It needs to happen in the future for any type of, if you want to term it a civil rights movement or a social, just like Ms. Pratt pointed out, right? Race is a social construct. And one of the ways that you combat any type of racism or misbeliefs about a race or anything like that is you have to go into the social structure and educate and speak and say, hey, I'm just like you, like to see that part, as long as the two parts are physically and kind of like ideologically separated and they never intermingle, right? That was the whole objective of segregation, the civil rights movement, was to keep them apart. And then that way both sides don't realize that there's another structure over them holding them down, right? So, but thanks so much for coming on the program today.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm surprised that it's not going into a third day, but I bet you're relieved.
You know, I am relieved.
I felt like I got freezer burn yesterday being inside the.
when you've seen previous cases come through, you know, after a while you're like, okay, here we go again. You know, it's going to be because the arguments don't fundamentally change, and so, but
it's a long day. It's a long day.
It is. And for you guys watching the program right now, as soon as this decision is dropped and I get a copy of it, we'll have a video up kind of dissecting the decision and what the judge says and doing projections on what may happen next. It's probably whichever way is going to go to the Supreme Court. I can almost guarantee it. And then if you're a citizen out there, you know, this discussion has made me think. If you're a citizen out there and you want to voice your opinion on the Freedman issue, right? This case even in particular, you know, shoot me an email. My email is jmoore, that's the letter J, MOORE @muskogemedia.com. And that's just like our channel name, MVSKOKE, the traditional spelling. So
and you can email me too. It's Allison, ALLISON @KOSU.org.
Yeah. So hit us up, say, hey, I've got something I want to say. Because that's, for me, in my opinion, that is my job, is to be the megaphone for citizens who feel like their voice isn't getting heard. That's the most important thing I can do. With that being said, thanks so much, Miss Allison Herrera. I look forward to all the coverage coming out of you in the future. And you guys tune in next time. For next week, we have on Monday a live wire with a group that is having some fundraiser to refurbish the Council Oak Park. So tune in there to see what that's all about. And with that being said, Mado, and we'll see you guys later. Chihicha, please.
Yourself, which is if you're in the reservation.
Well, and thank you for joining us. Of course, many of us are here because of a ruling that, of course, occurred this past week. And many people are anxious to know, wow, what does that mean for Creek Freedman? Congratulations to those of you who can now claim your birthright. But the question has arisen, where does one go from here? I am happy to share with you what this meeting will consist of. It's going to be a short but a busy meeting for sure. I'm going to share my screen very briefly before I turn it over to the speakers. And as you can see, the meeting today, Creek Freedman, where do we go from here? As I said, my name is Angela Walton Raji. I am a writer, historian, and genealogist. My background is that from the Choctaw Nation, but I research the Freedmen from all of the 5 tribes, and I write about them in terms of the remarkable history and resilience of remarkable people from whom we all come. I want to welcome you all here. Ron Graham is here. He's going to open up the session with an opening prayer. And from that point, we will then turn things over to President Marilyn Vann. Ron Graham, you do have the floor, and you can unmute yourself and open up with a brief prayer. Are you there, Ron? Can you hear me? And you'll have to unmute yourself as well. And I'm not sure if he's here or he may have stepped away. Oh, there he is. Okay, unmute yourself, Ron. We cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself, Ron.
Okay, y'all hear me now?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, let's
Thank you.
Let's just bow our heads and Heavenly Father, we come to you, Father, as humble as we can, thanking you and praising you for this moment. This time, Heavenly Father, we just thank you for waking us up, letting us see this brand new sunny day, Heavenly Father. We just thank you for just guiding us and directing us, Heavenly Father. We thank you for what happened about a few days ago. The Creek Nation giving us a citizenship victory in that Supreme Court, Heavenly Father. But we're just here to get an understanding, the knowledge and wisdom how to what needs to do for us to move forward. And I just want you to thank you. I want to thank you and I want to praise you. We give you the glory, the honor, and all the praises. In Jesus Christ's name I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Ron, for that prayer. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to the president of Descendants of Freedmen Association, Marilyn Van. Ms. Van, you do now have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Walton Raji. I want to welcome all the attendees that are here. And I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank God for a great Freedman victory. And of course, a lot went into this. The hard work of the litigants, the attorneys, the fair and wonderful judges. But first, I want to talk just a little bit about our Descendants of Freedmen Association and our sister organization, African Indians Foundation. Descendants of Freedmen Association is a 501c4 corporation fighting for the rights of the freedmen of the 5 tribes, incorporated in 2002. We have supported litigation for various cases, including Cherokees, the Nash and Van case, and Creek cases, including Mr. Graham and Mr. Johnson's case in 2005 tribal court. We've done congressional outreach and support for legislation to affect change for freedmen and upholding of rights. Meetings with federal agencies, both in Oklahoma and Washington, D.C., regarding services, including Indian Health Service for freedmen. Asking for services both for persons not in tribes as well as persons that are in tribes who've had discrimination. Outreach for Indian farmers lawsuits, which did include freedmen who could receive those funds and did. We've organized various demonstrations, worked with other freedmen groups on these demonstrations. We've had genealogy forums, assisted quite a few people in getting registered in various tribes. Get out the vote efforts for tribal elections. Sometimes freedmen have made the difference, and not just necessarily persons. Sometimes in tribes where people are not registered, freedmen can make the difference, getting your relatives to vote or helping these candidates to support freedmen. So assist us by joining as a member or an official supporter. I know Ms. Walton Raji I think her screen is showing some information that that shows more about this organization. Perhaps she can download this also to where people can put this on their own computers. Now, but we encourage you to become a member or an official supporter. We also have a sister organization, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, the African Indians of the 5 Civilized Tribes Foundation. The actions and activities are similar, except for we cannot lobby or, of course, formally endorse candidates. But these donations are tax deductible. Again, that information is on the sheet that I think is on your screen. So please, again, support us through your donations. If you help us, we can help you better. Now, just quick. I hope everybody heard me.
Yes,
Okay.
people are still just not muted. Please mute yourselves while the speakers are talking. Thank you. Continue.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Mrs. Moderator. Okay, just a quick overview of some news out there. The General Accounting Office has finished their investigation of the Freedmen, which was brought in by Senator Schatz and Senators Murkowski in 2022, and I spoke before the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, Washington, D.C. Their investigation was the treatment of currently registered Freedmen tribal members and federal services, and how to enumerate freedmen.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry. We have someone who needs to be muted. I've got to find who that person is. And I do make sure, ask that you all mute yourselves. Okay, thank you. Continue.
Okay. Continue with the GAO. Also, they were Miss Walton Raji was one of the people who assisted on this investigation and the number of freedmen, because I think Congress is looking at that. How many freedmen there are before we open up more services. The report has been
He's
sent
still
into
out there.
Okay, we're
Want me to give you the 20?
Okay, I think I've gotten where the noise was coming from. Thank you. Continue. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, the report has been sent to the Senate committee. Now, Cherokee Nation, the last election for this year for council has just finished. Mr. Grass won the runoff yesterday. Also, with the Cherokee Nation is heading out efforts to get federal legislation to ensure that tribally registered freedmen are treated the same in court when it comes to criminal law. The Veely law firm is assisting the tribe, and so this is not going to just if it comes to pass, will help persons that are registered in any federal tribe that are freedmen, not just the Cherokees. Choctaw Nation, many of you know, descendants spearheaded an effort to block tribal constitutional amendments that would make it more difficult for freedmen. Those amendments are not going to be sent to the Department of Interior, partly due to our efforts. Our next descendants meeting in person is set for August the 23rd, 2025, 1 p.m. at the King Center. Again, that is on the information that is that I believe is there. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And at this point, let's see, is our representative from the Seminole Nation here? Is Leetta Osborne here by any chance? We would certainly love to hear from her. She is the Seminole chief of the Bruner Band. And of course, as many people know, Seminoles and Creek people are very closely, certainly related historically and many through kinship as well. I don't see Leetta in the room as yet. Perhaps we can have her, or if she comes in a little bit later, to extend her greetings and well wishes when she does come in. At this point, as we look at the agenda, the purpose of this meeting, where do we go from here? We do have someone who's very, very knowledgeable about the structure and many options for citizens in the Creek Nation. Eli Grayson, who is a friend of Freedman as well. He's an enrolled citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation. And he is here to really share with you many things about the structure of the nation, also many options. It's not just about having a tribal card, putting in your wallet and walking off into the sunset. Certainly, we are certainly lucky to have him here. Eli, I'm going to open the floor for you. Unmute yourself and please share some of your feelings and thoughts with the group here at the present time. Thank you. Eli, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, I'm Eli Grayson. I have a radio show, Africans and Indians Table Talk. I know we're kind of speaking fast because everybody's got stuff to do today. Yeah, so what I want to mention first is that for those people who have filed for Creek citizenship and have been and did receive their denial letters, to call 1-800-482-1979. That is the Creek Nation telephone number. Ask for the Citizenship Department and tell them that you made application, you were denied under the, under the stuff of you were being classified as a freedman, and you would like for them to reopen your files for reconsideration. They're going to ask you some questions on the phone, and one would be, is your application current on file? Meaning, did you move? Did you change your address? If you got married, on and on. They're not going to look for you you have to make this call and make this request, because unfortunately, some of our members or some of the Freedman descendants that have filed for Creek citizenship, they passed on in the last few years. And so they're just not going to automatically send out tribal citizenship cards. They need for you to call them and say, hey, I filed for citizenship in the past. I got a denial letter. And so I'm asking you to reopen my files. And what they're going to tell you is just say on the phone, do you want your file reopened? It's going to be a yes or no. You're going to answer yes. That's going to be a recorded call for them to go ahead and look back at your files that you've already submitted. So you don't have to resubmit another application with documents. They've kept that stuff on file if it's been in the last 2 or 3 years. Now, if your file was like 4, 5, 6 years old, they're going to ask you to send in a new application without the documents. And the reason for that is because they cannot use an old signature, old dated signature. They need you to update your signature card because that's going to go on your tribal ID once that's mailed out, unless you actually go into the Creek Nation Citizenship Department. There are 2 offices, one in Okmulgee and one in Jinx. You can go there and have your photo taken so it can be placed on your new tribal ID, and then your signature can go on that. So I'm saying this because we're really focusing on people who have already filed for citizenship and been denied. Unfortunately, for those of you and some of you that are on this Zoom, you haven't filed. And what's going to happen, there's going to be a rush of people, thousands of people try to get their applications in. And the process is going to become a bottlenose type of thing. And it's going to delay some 3 months, some people 6 months, some people may even be a year. So for the people that have already filed for citizenship in the past already, and your application is there, they looked at it, the documents were good, but you just got a denial letter based on being a Freedman status, please, please call ASAP as soon as you can. And one of the reasons we're doing this because we kind of know the tribe may file for a federal appeal to overrule this Supreme Court ruling in federal court. So we're trying to get people kind of grandfathered in with their citizenship card so they can register to vote. We got an election coming up this September. And some of those questions on that ballot are constitutional questions. So I'm mainly focusing on the people who've already filed because it's easier to get your card at this point and get you registered to vote within our tribal elections at the same time. So anyway, if there's any questions at the end of this, I'll hang around. But I know everybody's going to be talking about genealogy and helping those people who haven't filled out an application. Also, one other thing, at Vernon Church in Greenwood, we're going to have a stack of citizenship applications available for you on Wednesday for people who don't have a printer to print those applications off. I'm having Kinko's print out 1,000, and we're going to have some there. We're going to find other places. I'm going to reach out to Reverend Rice in Okmulgee to have some of those applications available there for people to stop by and pick them up there. I don't think the citizenship office is going to mail you one. They're going to say, go online and print one off. And unfortunately, not everybody has a printer at home today. So if you can keep in mind, Wednesday at 6 o'clock at Vernon Church on Greenwood, up in North Tulsa, they're going to have some citizenship applications stacked up, ready to be picked up. And we're going to reach out to Reverend Rice. We're going to find somebody in Muskogee to have some available for people in Muskogee, as well as Bowling and other places like that. And if you have any suggestions about your church or some store in your little town that would do this, please text me 918-730-1133 and let me know, and we'll drop some of those applications by there so people can pick them up. Thank you. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Marilyn.
You're very welcome. Eli, is there anything in particular that you would recommend? For example, you mentioned two places, one in Okmulgee, one in Jenks. Is there a difference in terms of the speed in which those applications may be handled by any particular office? Do you have a suggestion?
No, I just, my feeling and what I'm actually hearing, and I know this is being recorded, so I'm being very careful, is that because the ruling went farther than just dealing with the Creek-Freedman citizenship. The Supreme Court basically amended our Constitution to remove the word by blood. So the thing about that, there's been a class of Creeks who are more than 1/4 blood that have run the tribe for the last 45 years. And so removing that language from the Constitution jeopardizes them to losing their political positions where they're the only ones in the past that's been able to run for council or chief. Now it's up to everybody, including the freedmen. So they're not just looking at, okay, we can enroll the freedmen, but we could still be in charge of the tribe. They're now looking at the possibility of losing their position as chief and council members and actually control of the tribe. And let's be honest, 1/3 of the Creek Nation, and that would be including myself, are people of African descent. Black Creeks, 1/3 of the tribe currently enrolled. And so when you're talking about bringing another 45,000 freedmen people onto the tribal rolls, you're talking about a tribe that's technically would almost be, out of control by Black folks, if you want to be honest. And they don't want that. This is the problem that Clark Cox had back in the 1970s. He saw this as one of the issues that was going to happen. There were so many Creek Freedmen descendants that if left in charge or left without rules, they would be running the Creek Nation even up to this day. So my suspicion is that they're going to go either file a separate federal lawsuit in the Northern District or Eastern District of Oklahoma, and they probably already got it prepared, or they're going to join the Graham versus the DOI case that's already in Eastern Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to let this go because it's a challenge to the blood quantum at this point. So, but to your question, I think they're going to go ahead and until there's a federal judge that puts a stay on the Supreme Court ruling, they're going to go ahead and approve a number of the Creek Freedman citizenship cards. One, the Grayson, Ron Grant, people that have filed and kept up with their stuff. But people who are filing as of today and tomorrow and whatever, you may have to, be patient because they're going to get a flood of things. It took a while for the Cherokee Nation to actually start issuing cards other than Maryland's and others. But the vast majority of people, it worked out over a number of years. And that's what's going to happen with the new applicants as they come in. If they get 1,000 applications tomorrow and 1,000 the next day and 1,000 the following week, and the council has not increased the employment in the citizenship office, you got the same 10 people doing everything with a lot of more work than they had before, because they're just not enrolling Creek Freedmen, they're still enrolling by blood people too. So
there's a question from Grant Perryman. Will they be challenging the blood quantum and the Freedmen citizens, or just the blood quantum issue in general then?
They'd probably be doing both. And it's
Really?
very well, the danger of challenging the Creek-Freedman thing is because you're dealing with Article 2. And quite frankly, there is no mention of Indians in the Creek Treaty. Only freedmen or people of African descent having rights to the tribe. Everybody else is just assumed, okay, the Indians are just going to have rights. The treaty is actually silent on that. But where it came to the people of African descent that were given the rights of the Indians, it specifically said an equal interest in the funds, an equal interest in the soil, you know, and they have the rights of the native citizens. So it's actually Pacific, and it does mention them where it doesn't mention anybody else. So if they challenge it, it may come from two fronts, you know, the Freedman issue and the by blood issue, or they may just lump them together and say that the Supreme Court overreached.
Interesting.
We'll see next week.
Wow. Well, in your opinion, who has the, I don't want to say the greater advantage of having their applications acted upon? Hopefully everybody has an equal chance, but there are those who have applied before, who, you know, maybe they have to update it, but then there are those who are just applying fresh, never have applied before. Are they likely to be sort of put on the back burner? Will there be?
I don't think it's a back burner. I do know the people who have applied already, particularly since the district court ruling a couple of years ago, their applications are going to be on top.
Okay.
Because those are the files they have in hand. It's the bird in hand thing.
Right.
Okay, so everybody else, if you file for your citizenship, don't think you're going to get it in a week. Don't think you're going to get it in a month. It may be 6 months. It may be a year before they can actually process it. Now, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. When I was enrolled in 1999, it took 2 years.
Wow.
2 years for them to actually got my application. It was my whole family. But by the time the whole process was done, it was 2 years. Of course, they've improved the time tremendously on that if your records are right, you know, down to if your records are right, you can get enrolled in 1 day, you know, if you're by blood. But now we're talking about here, the citizenship office is meeting on even how to create these cards. Are they going to be the same as the tribal ID? Are they going to be the same and just not include a blood quantum? Are they going to do what the Seminoles did and brand people with a badge of slavery by saying Freedman card with no rights?
Right.
You know? So those things are going to be worked out, and they're probably being talked about through this weekend, actually, about how they're going to go about and do this. There's a bigger problem in all of this, and the freedmen have got to start talking about it, even particularly the Cherokee and Seminole freedmen. Right now, if you get pulled over and get a ticket in Tulsa, if you're a by blood member, you get to challenge that ticket in tribal court. If you're classified as a freedman descendant, you have to go through Tulsa's courts. You don't get to use the tribal courts. So that is a big issue that still the freedmen of all 5 tribes are going to have to deal with. I will say, if you read in this Supreme Court ruling, the Supreme Court did define the word Indian as it relate to Muskogee Creek Indians. It include by blood and freedman descendants both. So once you are enrolled as a citizen of the Creek Nation, though your ancestors were classified as freedmen, according to the Supreme Court of the Muskogee Creek Nation, you are now an Indian. So
what do you think about a person who physically takes their application and hands it in? Is that person still basically going to be treated the same as if it was sent in by mail?
No, they're going to get preference. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're going to get preference because the person at the table, at the desk, the reception desk is going to open up and look at what you're presenting. And they're going to tell you right on the spot if you're kind of missing something. And then they would take that application in and give it to someone who's going to assign it to a caseworker that's going to review your file. Now,
Okay.
mailing thing is mailed to a P.O. box. It's probably picked up once a week, you know, and then that person gets it and have to go through the mail. And if it's
Right.
1,000 envelopes, you know,
That'd
then
be a while.
right. So if you walk it in yourself, which is if you're in the reservation, please don't put it in the mail. Go down there and turn it in. Go down there and specifically turn it in, you know. And at some point they may even just copy your birth certificate. They put their little stamp on it to say that it was received in the office, and they give you that stuff right back. So you get to take your social security card back, your birth certificate back, the death certificates, all those files that you sent. They'll make a copy of it right there on the spot. Also, if you walk it in, they'll also go ahead and take your photo if they use it or not.
Okay.
So when you do get your tribal ID in the mail, it'll have your photo on it. And let me tell you the really important thing about a tribal ID in the Creek Nation. There are two types of IDs in the Creek Nation. One is called a tribal ID, and the other one is called a enhanced tribal ID. Two different cards. One is the regular basic citizenship card. Now, with that ID, once you get it, you can go to the pharmacy, you can use it at your bank. You can use it on domestic flights instead of your driver's license because it's all approved by Homeland Security. It's considered a federal ID. Now, the enhanced tribal ID is almost a passport. I have one. I can go to Canada. I can go to Mexico with it. I can go on any boat to the Caribbeans, to Brazil, wherever I want to go in the Western Hemisphere, I can use that enhanced ID. The difference, though, with the enhanced ID, you get a special interview, and it's an interview basically by an employee in the citizenship office who's been certified by Homeland Security to ask you about 20 questions about your life to prove who you are. And it's stuff like when you were 15 years old, that you live at such and such address, A, B, C, D, E, or F. Which one is it? And they'll go through it. Did you work at such and such place in 1980? All these different questions to prove. And that particular ID is very different than the basic tribal ID, which is just a citizenship card.
Okay, that's helpful. Well, there are a couple of questions for you. Stephen Nave has posted a question, and he said, quote, I sent a copy of the 2022 denial letter, updated address form, and photo ID to the email address citizenship@mcncitizenship.com based on a Facebook post by the Muskogee Creek Freedman Indian Band. So based on this recommendation, I guess based on your recommendation, would it be better to call to request a reactivation of the application?
You could do either or. Calling is just as good because if they have everything updated in your file, and what they're going to do on the phone is ask you a series of questions, your name, your birthday. They're just going to confirm what they're looking at on their screen. So if you don't have the ability to send all that stuff in, and that you've already done it before and you got a denial letter, a phone call would do, and they're going to get you voice approved where they record it on their computer that you approve them opening up your file. It's just as good.
So, okay, so that's good to know then that they still have you on file, even if you were denied then.
Oh yeah, they've not thrown those records away. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good to know that. I think
Now,
many
if you
people-
filed 10 years ago, no, your stuff has been thrown out.
Okay.
You know, so we're talking about people mainly who filed since that Supreme Court ruling and right before the ruling, you know, just in the last maybe 3 years at the most. If you filed earlier than that, you may have to submit you're going to have to call and ask them to look you up on their computer, and they'll tell you on their computer if they still have all those documents on record. If they don't, then you're going to have to start again.
Okay, that's good. That's very useful information. Monica Bailey says, quote, I took my application and updated records Wednesday for adjudication. Yes, the clerk will scan your records, electronic signature, take your photo, and return your records right then. Well, that's good to know that you do get your records back. I
Yeah,
guess
they don't keep
especially
them.
that's
Yeah.
good to know.
So,
Question from Benny Denson the fourth. Will the Supreme Court ruling identifying Indian by both blood and Freedman, does that include same instructions towards federal courts concerning the Major Crimes Act? I guess they're talking about the McGirt decision.
yeah, well, we're hoping it would help. You know, so right now, and Marilyn can come back and talk about this later, but she was on my show this past Tuesday talking about that. The Cherokees are currently trying to write an amendment to the Major Crimes Act that would include the freedmen, to include the wording that the freedmen are Indian too, as simple as that. I'm saying that our Creek Nation Supreme Court has already done it.
Okay.
They have done it in this ruling. So submitting stuff like this to the federal courts in Oklahoma as well as the state court, and it's the state courts that are trying to say everybody but the black folk in these tribes, you know.
Right.
So maybe submitting to a state judge said no. The Muskogee Creek Nation says all of its citizens are Indians, whether they're freedmen or by blood. So your argument to say that it's the Major Crime, and here's the thing, the Major Crimes Act was silent on the freedmen. They didn't say anything about it. And then, as you know, as a historian, Angela, the tribes prosecuted as black folks that got out of line up until statehood.
Interesting. Wow. Another question, Wilda Alcox wants to know, if you're not local to Oklahoma, are there any stipulations or requirements that must be met other than ensuring your information is correct, or basically proving lineal descent to someone?
Same thing.
Okay, so basically there's no distinction there.
Yeah, the only difference would be after you were enrolled, you're considered a at-large citizen.
Right.
And you're restricted to only certain benefits. There are certain benefits that people get living in a reservation that are paid for by the federal government. If you live outside the Creek Reservation, the feds don't pay out on stuff. Okay. If you live in but they do, the tribe does use its tribal funds to kind of manage those services and stuff for at-large citizens. But as far as the application is concerned, it's the same. And please, once you get your citizenship ID, register to vote the same day.
Good advice. Very good advice. And Shelley wants to know, is the enhanced tribal card better than getting clear? Now, I can answer that because I have clear. Clear is just to get you through security a little bit, get to the security stop at the airport. That is not
the same thing.
It's not the same thing at all. So she also says, I have known the traveler number and the real ID, but when I receive my tribal card, will I then request the enhanced tribal card? In other words, I guess, how do you get it?
So you're going to have to make an appointment. You're going to have to make an appointment with you have to go in person for these cards. And occasionally the Creek Nation would go to LA, they'll go to Chicago, they'll go to Dallas, and their citizenship office is there in DC. They'll go there and the citizenship office would interview people who made appointments, because the interview takes about 30 minutes. And so if 50 people show up, you see how long that is, and only one person has been assigned to interview anybody. And so you have to call, make an appointment, make sure you show up for that appointment, because they probably won't give you another one. You know, so, and that's the difference. You know, you just can't request it over the phone. You can request an appointment over the phone, but you have to be in person for the interview.
That's good advice. Janetta Jones has asked, if you've mailed in the original documents, do they send the originals back? I think you addressed that a little bit, but
they do.
They do send it back. And I know many people like, this is my only official birth certificate. Oh my God, but it's good to know they do send it back to you. And she goes on to say, I ask because I work at the airport and have everything except for my travel card. I've shown up personally and will continue. Thank you for the information. So
yeah, she just reminded me of something. Once you get your tribal ID, inform your employee that you are a citizen of the Creek Nation, because there is some benefits for companies that have Indian and the Freedmen or now Indians employees, and their insurance are kind of less, and don't forget, in Maryland, I'll probably come back and bring this up. Once you get that tribal ID, and if you live here in the Creek Nation, please go down to the health centers, the Creek Nation Hospital, the Cherokee Nation hospitals, all these tribal hospitals, and open up a tribal health chart for yourself.
Very
and
good.
You got kids. Do it right away. Do not wait. Make sure you want to get that grandfathered in, just in
Those in
case
the
there's a
Creek Nation,
challenge.
where do they go, Eli? Where's the place to go?
Well, I'm Creek, but I don't use the Creek Nation Health System. I use the Cherokee Nation Health System. And so you can go to Telequap if you're going to do that at W.W. Hastings. You can go to the Claremore Hospital that the Cherokee Nation now owns. They have a facility in Muskogee. Now, if you're going to do the Creek Nation, there's one called the Council Oak here in Tulsa. You can go down to the Okmulgee Indian Hospital there. You can go to the one in Okemah. But wherever you go, make sure you take your tribal ID and your driver's license and all of that stuff, your personal ID, and open up a chart. Even if you're not sick, do it anyway.
So you're not restricted by your tribal affiliation. A Creek does not have to go to a Creek medical facility. Okay, that's good to know.
Not at all.
Okay.
May I say something real quickly about this here? There's also urban Indian clinics, like for instance, say in Oklahoma City, or places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, where you can go and get treatment, and even clinics outside of the 5 tribes. The Absentee Shawnee Clinic, for instance, the Citizen Potawatomi, even before the Seminole letter, which was close to the Cherokee letter that said that the freedmen had to be treated. And we're going to try to work on the Creek Freedmen getting a letter here from Indian Health Service, just in case they have problems. But you can go to some of these other places. You'll be treated nice. You won't be turned away if you go to some of these clinics. You might not be treated as well if you go to the Seminole Clinic in to the IHS Clinic in Wewoka. Seminole Freedmen have had some problems there. Just a heads up.
That's very useful, and that's very good information to have. And I think many people, will be able to get things done faster just with that piece of information.
Okay, can I add one thing to that, Angela, before you go to the next question?
Okay.
Also, once you get your tribal ID, go on the Muskogee Creek Nation employment website, as well as the Cherokee Nation, whatever, because you're now going to be classified as an Indian. And if you see jobs that fit you or your kids or your first cousin enrolled, whatever, let them know. We need to get people that are Freedman descendants employed in these tribal offices. That helps tremendously in moving forward the Freedmen from, the bottom to at least halfway up at this point.
Very good. That's really useful to know. A question from Wilda Alcox. Do the benefits for being Creek apply everywhere, work, etc.? Maybe you can address that. I'm not sure exactly in terms of other places where, I guess any place where a tribal card could be a benefit. Could you address that a little bit?
Yeah, you need to tell your employee, your corporation, whoever you're working for, that you are a tribal member. And there's some discounted rates on your health costs that they supposed to apply. Now, that's going to be only really if you kind of are living in a reservation or area where there's an IHS clinic or Indian healthcare clinic. There are some states that just don't have that, you know. But there are some benefits that, like though I paid through the nose with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I do get the Indian discount for having that insurance or being a tribal member. And so things like that, you kind of keep in mind, you know, because one thing that's going to come up too is Indian housing. You know, the fact that you're now going to be applicable for Indian housing, as well as the 187 grants, which is like 25 grand toward the down payment of a house, those things like that. Those are the things that you know, the Freedmen are going to have to gather in the long run and talk about all. Matter of fact, I sent the chief a really nice letter. Believe me, I wrote one, basically encouraging him to not follow the Seminoles, to follow the Cherokees on this.
Very good.
And open up the Creek Nation River Spirit Casino in our beautiful, you know, event center, and actually have a day or weekend that the different agencies and departments that make up the Muscogee Creek Nation have their little tables out, and the Freedman descendants can come through there, get information, sit down, talk to people, all of that, from citizenship to housing to healthcare to childcare, because we're now talking about daycare for kids too. You know, so all of these different, and there are so many, even if you wanted to work for the Light Horse Police, you know, there's so many different departments that you got to educate yourself on in the different agencies and the independent agencies, as well as the college.
About the Creek Nation.
Okay, someone has to mute themselves, please. Thank you. I think it's Marilyn. No, it's someone else.
Hopefully, Chief Hill would do the right thing and do this and do it fast, you know, and become more inclusive than exclusive. But again, I go back, I don't know if they were really worried about the Freedmen at this much point, as well as losing that 1/4 blood quantum thing for running for chief. That's a whole different issue, but that got tied up in this case. So,
wow. Another question, Caritha. Hello, Caritha. I happen to know you. Question: as a Cherokee Freedman and you have Cherokee citizenship, can you switch tribal roles? Now I see that as part of two parts. One, dual citizenship, or can you switch? Can you address that?
Yeah, so the Cherokee Nation does allow dual citizenship. However, the Creek Nation does not. And if you rescind your membership at the Cherokee Nation, and then you get in the Creek Nation, and then the shit hits the fan again, on and on and on, then you can't go back to the Cherokee Nation. So you got to remember, it's the same thing in the Creek Nation. I'm in Road Creek. What if I want to go enroll Seminole or Choctaw? If I rescind my citizenship, I can't come back to the tribe. So before you do that, I want you to consider several things. One, do you live in the Cherokee Nation? Or do you live in the Creek Nation? If you live in the Creek Nation as a Cherokee citizen, then you're considered a at-large Cherokee. You might as well live in California. So just kind of remember, think about it before you do it, because you may end up losing more of the benefits that you have as a Cherokee citizen right now. So.
Wow, that's very good advice, though. And people really need to think about that before making a quick switch.
Yeah.
A question from Janetta: where is the Creek Nation Reservation in Oklahoma? That's an interesting question.
Lord have mercy. Okay. We love you, girl, but you're going to have to, if you're going to get in this, you're going to have to pick up some books, get on Angela's website, learn this stuff, because this is the stuff that they use against Black folks. They use that, or they don't know. They don't know about tradition. They don't know about the, and you feel bad in one sense by not knowing. The reality is they have to learn too. So learn where the Creek Reservation is in the east central part of the state. It's south of Tulsa. It includes Okemah, Okmulgee, Muskogee. If you can just get on the map and look in that area, or Google Muskogee, Muskogee, Creek Nation Reservation map. It'll show you the map. It'll show you Okmulgee as the capital of it. It'll show you Tulsa as the far north part of the reservation. So, but you need to say something right here, Angela, about people. Okay, don't just get your citizenship card. Know
And
your
walk into the
ancestry.
sunset. Absolutely.
Know your history. Go ahead, girl.
Absolutely. Well, that's something that I preach about in a lot of my presentations and classes. It's very, really essential. It's not about just a benefit, and I think Eli made a particular point. That's where they're going to get you. That's where they're going to criticize you. That's where they're going to say, these people know nothing about who we are, but they just want to come and take. No, the history is a very rich one. And I typed to the screen, maybe a bit humorously, but I'm always serious. Google is your friend. You can find a lot of answers to questions simply with a Google search. You can ask any kind of question you want to ask, but it's not just geographically, where are the lines? There's a place in Tulsa. You cross the street, you're in the Cherokee Nation. Go back to the other side, you're in the Creek Nation. And you want to, as a scholar of Freedman history once pointed out to several of us, learn your history and the facts better than they know it. There are people who are lifelong citizens of the 5 nations, the 5, as my friend Terry might say, the 5 slaveholding tribes, have no idea slavery ever occurred in Indian territory. And it's something that you need to be able to know, oh, well, listen, not just can I prove who my great-grandparents were and, oh, they have a roll number. It's beyond that. It's a bigger story than that. This is your birthright, but you need to know a few facts about your birthright, how you got there, when you got there, and what your folks did. The Freedmen have a tremendous history in the Muskogee Creek Nation. And we're traveling with delegations to Washington in the 1800s. And have really done a lot in terms, they received land allotments. They received the same size land allotments as other citizens did. And where is the Creek Nation Reservation today? Where are the lines? Where's what do they call it? The line of demarcation. Where is it? You can find that information, not just with a Google search, but with multiple sites. So it is important that we do this. Someone made a reference to Oklahoma tourism. Be careful sometimes with the tourism because there are some errors. And I know they had a map a few years ago that had all the Black towns, but they included 3 tribal towns, which were not residential towns. These were districts, political districts, and not towns where you go to sleep and where your house is. So don't depend on tourism office to give you your history. Your history is there. It's well documented. Connect with other people who are researching the history and beware of false history. There are people out there saying, we were here 10,000 years before Columbus. Be careful, be careful, be careful. But get your history from historians, from researchers, and from the documents that your ancestors have left. I'll stop preaching and go back to another question. Someone asked a question does, and I think this is a very valid question, does enrollment eligibility apply to spouse and stepchildren? Do you want to address that, Eli?
No. Just simple no.
It's lineal descent of the person.
Right. No.
Not their friends, not their spouses, unless that spouse is a lineal descendant.
Right.
And can also document him or herself. Stepchildren, obviously someone's bringing children into a marriage. That would not apply. Unless those stepchildren had another parent. And also.
So, an example of it, you have people in a family where you have a mom and she's got 4 kids and 2 kids about a different man than the other 2 kids. And one of the men happened to be Creek and the other one not. Well, you got 2 kids in the household that's enrolled Creek and the other 2 kids are not. So yeah, they do not enroll people that don't have ancestry on the Dawes rolls.
Right.
Okay,
that is something.
Yeah. So
I also recommend anything by Daniel Littlefield. I think Yes, I think I misspelled his last name, Littlefield, Field, it should be. But by all means, it is important. It is our history. I can't tell you whose picture should be on your wall. You can't tell me whose picture should be on my wall. But it's my responsibility to put whose ever picture is important to me on my wall. Likewise, it's important for you. Therefore,
Can I say something about that ruling?
Sure.
And the judges on it. And I think it's important for you guys to know that one of the Supreme Court justices happened to be someone that we know as Miko Thompson. Miko in the Creek Nation means chief, by the way. And Miko Thompson is the real chief of the Creek Nation. He's the traditional chief. He's been chief, I think, since he was 17 years old. He's the Miko of Hickory Ground, which is the real capital of the Creek Nation. Now, he is the most respected individual in the Creek Nation. Miko Thompson is. And if you look at that opinion from the Supreme Court, Miko Thompson is on the Supreme Court. He wasn't a dissenter. He signed that. So when you got people saying, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this, you could say, well, the real traditional chief of the Creek Nation, the most respected person in our tribe, signed off on that opinion. His signature is right there. And that should end a lot of that conversation about these so-called traditional Indians not wanting to deal with Black folks in the tribe. Well, the one person that they respect the most signed off on it and agreed to the opinion. You gotta, I can't tell you how big that is. Had Miko Thompson descended, we probably would have a big problem at the tribe. But the fact that all 5 justices that heard this case affirmed it, all 5 of them did. And Miko Thompson, though he wasn't the Chief Justice, that's Andrew Adams, Miko Thompson was the most important one on there to get a signature from. And he actually did it. Now, mind you, this is back to learning Creek history. Everybody on here that's a Creek Freedman descendant need to know who Jesse Franklin was. First Black man to serve on the Supreme Court in the United States happened to be a Black man serving on the Creek Nation Supreme Court from 1878 to 1884, Jesse Franklin. This is part of why learning your history is important, learning what a reservation is important. You know, but all these stories we got, you know, better than them. And I think Marilyn and somebody said this years ago, when you become a citizen of these tribes, that Indian that could be a full blood don't have to know nothing. He's got a CDIB card that says full blood, and they don't have to know nothing. But you got to know as much as you possibly can, yes, because your citizenship has always been a football since 1866, a political football.
Absolutely.
Back and forth. So anyway, is there any other?
Yeah, another person has asked a question. What if the person listed on the DAWs is listed by a nickname rather than a birth name? Or they're saying that a person is not, I guess, a citizen. How do I clear this up? Now, that's more of a genealogical question.
That's going to get back to the genealogy and application.
Yeah. Yes.
And Ron Graham, I think, is going to be coming on talking about how to fill out applications.
Yes, is Ron back? I know he had to step away for a few minutes. Are you back? Okay.
One of the things that I want to ask Ron to us, because 10 people have asked me about this already, who've already submitted applications over the last year or two, but they had a letter wrong on their birth certificate and their parents' birth certificate, and the tribe won't accept it. It's an E or I. It's something really superficial, but there are ways to get around that and ways to amend that. There's ways to get delayed birth certificates. There are ways to get amended birth certificates.
Amended, yes.
My own father, who I'm enrolled through, never had a birth certificate. And so when I got enrolled, I had to go down to the, fly into the state of Oklahoma to Vitals and sit there with a bunch of high school records and kid records and testimonies and all this to prove who he was and that he was actually born. And the state of Oklahoma issued him a delayed birth certificate. So, and he got that when he was, I think, like 70 years old or something. That's how long ago it's been.
Wow, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Terry's asked a question. If the Muskogee Nation challenges the ruling by the Supreme Court and takes it to a U.S. federal court, could that jeopardize tribal sovereignty? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, they have to waive their tribal sovereignty to take this to court. And this has been one of the delays that they didn't do it on Thursday, by the way. They have to weigh this very carefully, that if they take this to court, then they're subject to many different things, ex parte young individuals being subject. But the tribe itself waives, and Marilyn can tell you about what happened in her case. The Cherokee Nation waived their sovereignty to go argue, we have a right to put out the black folk, you know. And the mantra of the Freedman should be what the court said. Congress, and this is what they said, and I'm not going to offend anybody because Negro is on my birth certificate, so I use it a lot. Congress never gave the Creek Nation the right to kick out Negroes, period. And that's what the judgment says. Congress never gave permission to do it. It's not in writing, not from 1866 to 2025. You got to realize that Congress has a say on this, not some Indian down sitting at their computer in Okema. They don't get a say in this. Only Congress has a right to put you out of the tribe. And the court was very clear on that. The chief doesn't have a right to put you out. Congress collectively can pass something to put you out, but they're not going to do it.
Interesting. Very good point. Preston would like to know, any idea why Judge McNack recused himself?
We don't know. They kept the two judges that recused themselves and not go on record. They just have a right to recuse themselves. Why? I don't know, but I do know a lot of McNacks that are Freedmen. You know, so I have no idea. You know, the bottom line is, I rarely, you know, the Creek Nation has a population of 107, 8, 9,000. We have maybe 400 full bloods.
Wow.
You know? Okay, so everybody else is mixed with something. And not everybody's mixed with white.
There you go.
Okay.
Wow.
So I don't know why they kept, but I'm glad they did.
Wow.
You know, so, but quite frankly, if it was one judge that heard that case, that would have been enough. So, and that's just what our tribal law is. You know, it didn't take all of them to rule on this, but we got 5, and we got the most important person to actually give his signature, and that's Miko Thompson.
Very good.
And if you Googling anything today, Google Miko Thompson of Hickory Ground. There's been so many documentaries about his life. This guy is a hero at this point to the Creek Freedmen.
Very good. That's good to know. Thank you, Eli. We're at the 5 o'clock, well, 5 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Central. We still have a genealogy portion. Ron Graham, I know he had to step away. Is he back? Ron, are you back with us? Because
yes,
I know
I'm back.
Okay, you have some genealogical advice for people to share?
Yes. Thank you guys for sticking around also. Marilyn, Eli, Angela, that's been great. Great information, Eli. Yeah, on your submitting your application, your genealogy has to be what I say perfect. Okay, you gotta have, if you have your grandfather on the rolls, of course you would have to have your birth certificate. If your mother or father is still living, you need their death certificate. Sometimes you may have to get that birth certificate also. All right. Then when you get to that person who is on the roll, of course you can have their death certificate. They may not have a birth certificate. What I had done 30 years ago, probably 40 years ago, is that they had required me to have a state certified birth certificate for my dad. But my dad was born in 1902. So what I had to do is go get a delayed birth certificate. And I did achieve that. I submitted that birth certificate. And but still yet, I needed another supporting document, such as a social security numerate, okay, which is an excellent document on yourself or your ancestry, okay. But your when you get doing your genealogy, all you have to do is go as far back as someone who was born in 1906 or further. They should be listed on the rolls. Okay, they should be listed. If not, there's something problematic happen while they're not listed. Now, if you can go a step back to their parents may be listed, but if there's still a lot of question there, why is this person not did not get a roll number? Okay, but the documentation is crucial. It is birth, death certificates. You may need a marriage license for your if you're a lady, and the name change for anyone, any name change. You're going to need documentation of why and how it was changed. Okay, so that's about it right there. But what can you?
A question, Ron. I know some people have come into some of the genealogy sessions that I occasionally host, and people will say, "Oh yes, my ancestors were on card number 4586," and then they'll look at the card, and they're 2, if not 3 generations. You may have the head of the house, the wife and children, but one of the children is now married, so now you have a grandchild's also on the card, and many people will ask, well, okay, now I can't get anything that's going to show great grandpa, who's the head of the house. But the fact is that their grandfather, who's one of the children, is as far as they have to go. Is that correct?
Yeah. You go to the nearest direct grandparent that is on the census.
So they don't have to go and prove that they descend now from the mother and the father, and then of course the great grandfather. If grandpa was a child at 6 years old on that card, and there are 2 other generations ahead, they only have to prove their connection to that youngest person on the card. Is that correct?
Totally correct. Yes,
okay.
I totally agree with that. So, because some people want to go back to 1870 or something,
right?
The rolls are between 1898 and 1906. They were reopened in 1914 by Congress, but only for a short period. Okay, and when they reopened it in 1914, it was dealing with the matters that was at hand before they closed it in 1906.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Angela, this is very important. Okay, so if you get enrolled yourself, once you get enrolled, just remember that the next person in your generation don't have to go back to 1906, the way our citizenship office work. They would just pull your file and look at it and then enroll your descendant instead of going back to 1906. But when you first try to get enrolled, everybody's got to go back to 1906. Okay, but for now, once you get that, then just kind of remember 10 years from now, you got a couple of more grandkids. They're only going to look at their parent or you to get enrolled. They're not going to go back.
That's good advice. That's very, very good advice. In other words, if you're enrolled now, the others in your family, children, grandchildren, have to prove their connection to you and not to the great. That is very useful to know. There's another question. A person has asked, my great grandfather, and dad have the same name with Junior on the end. All 3 have the same roll number. I'm not sure about them having the same roll number. Will that change for me as the son of my dad? I think maybe want to address that. I think they're confusing the roll number with the card number, but as it's read, all 3 have the same roll number. Will that change for me as as the son of my dad. And I'm not sure if that's what the person's related. It says Marilyn Van, but I think it might be someone else typing that. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if either one of you want to address that question. It is
Well, Angela, I mean, I agree with you because all three of them cannot have the same number.
Exactly. Yeah.
The roll number is equivalent to a social security number.
Right. Exactly.
That's what they did back there in 1906. It was a roll number. Okay, you look at it as a social security number. So each person had their own roll number. I don't know what she's.
I think they may have be on the same enrollment card. For example, my brother's name is Samuel Walton. Well, Junior was used because my dad was Samuel Walton. However, my grandfather is Samuel Walton, as was my great grandfather. There are 4 Samuels in my family. But if you look at the enrollment card of the family, you will see the head of the house, great grandpa Sam. You'll see his wife, Sally, my great grandmother. You'll see my grandfather on the card. To the left of their name are their roll numbers in sequence. Their numbers differ. So I think the person asking that question might be thinking the card number. That's not your roll number. If you're looking at an enrollment card, to the left of their name is their roll number. So I am thinking about that. Now, I see that person's trying to clarify. No, it is shown as the same roll number. I think you'd have to provide maybe an example of that, which we can't necessarily do here. But I'd certainly be willing to chat with you a little bit more about that as well. So I'm not sure we can answer that one right here. El Toro Charles says, I have Freedman cards and U.S. Census records. The document family lineage to my father. Please advise, are U.S. Census records acceptable documentation? Ron, you want to address that? Do they utilize federal census records?
Such as the census,
20,
the 1910,
1920 census, 1930 census, 1940. Is that utilized as something that is considered acceptable?
Yes, but it is a secondary document. You cannot use that as a primary document. Okay. Let's say there's a name Miles. Let's say Miles Davis. Okay. But you see Miles, there's 2 ways to spell Miles. Miles, Myles. Okay. Now, he may be in a 1910 census as Miles. On the 1920 census, it may be Myles. So you can use that right there. That census, and I have used those censuses like that to show the difference, because that 1910 census will still show if the parents was still living, they'll show the parents of the family. 1920, they just got 10 years older. It's going to show the parents. It may have a different spelling of Miles. All right. So you can show them that. Okay.
But that it's not necessarily considered required. What would you say are the most essential records, Ron? I think that might help.
The primary records are your birth, death certificates, marriage license. But with your death certificates, you may have need a secondary source to turn in with your application, such as a census, okay, which are great. They're federal documents.
Right. Okay. Thank you. If there aren't, it shows roll number on Dawes listing. Okay. As I said, we'll have to follow up with that. So we're both looking at the same record, and certainly I'll be happy to meet with you to do that. Would it be wise to go into the office to talk to someone? I don't think you can just talk about your case and present it. You present the records. Maybe either you or Eli can address that. You just can't come and try and convince them. You give them the documents and they analyze. Is that correct?
That's correct. Just uh, uh, do your application, submit your application with your documents, with someone that's on that Dawes roll, Creek Freedman roll, and let them scan it in. They're gonna scan it in. They're gonna take your picture afterwards. But if you still needing something else, they may not take your picture. They may just say there, well, looks like you may need this. You know, those guys at the window, they're quote unquote experts, or they work at. They know a little bit about that genealogy process when
Okay.
it comes to enrolling your when it comes to submitting your application. Okay, so but you can, you don't have to. Uh, it's been laid out. I mean, by this case, I'll just go to submit your application.
Yeah,
That's it.
can I say
just
something there, Marilyn? Because I do a lot of work with the citizenship office. Just because something
let me jump in here. Now, I see some people are coming in here under Marilyn Van Click, which is my married name. When I forwarded a few people at the last minute the link that was sent to me, I guess when they registered themselves, or I registered them, that popped up as opposed to how I was registering people before.
Yeah, I
So
see 3 people with that name, Marilyn. You're correct.
yes. Oh, and before we go, I also want to mention Mrs. Sampson. She's dialed in, so she is here. But sorry, Eli, I'm taking away from your time, so let me pop back out.
No, I just want to say I've done a lot of work with the citizenship office. Some of them are my really good friends. If you're missing a document, when you get there and you turn it in and they say, well, you don't have this document, please don't take it personally. Don't, they're just telling you, hey, this is a document that the citizenship board requires. It's not necessarily the employee, because they don't make the rules. It's the board and the National Council that makes the rules. And they're usually just following orders. So sometimes when you walk in, as Miguel Bond, I don't know if he's on here, would say, a little kindness got him a long way through there and registering a whole bunch of people in his family. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, and someone says that Mr. Grayson, I would like to discuss my case with you regarding this citizenship hold. You will have to reach out to Mr. Grayson directly about that.
Angela.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to, because I'm getting ready to go again. I just want to leave them my information, telephone information.
Okay,
And
I'll type it in the chat, Ron.
Oh, okay. I was trying to do that, but
oh, go ahead. If you're doing it, that's
okay.
fine.
I was trying to. I really, but okay. That's all I have. Unless somebody have some more questions.
Someone did say, Otis Bruner said, my two times grandmother, I guess he means great grandmother, is on the roll on my father's side. So will I need death certificates for her, my one times grandfather? I assume you're saying great grandfather and great great grandfather is what you're asking, and who are deceased. I have plenty of census and marriage licenses to help support. And as I'll just answer genealogically, you'll need anything that's going to assist you in proving lineal descent to the person on the Dawes roll or on that Dawes card from whom you descend. So if your great grandfather is on the roll, you don't have to worry about the great great grandfather. But if it is the second times or the great great grandfather, then you'll need death certificates to connect each person to the generation that preceded them. It's lineal descent that you will be proving. And of course, those census records, they're good. They will also be helpful. Amber says, I know that some tribes require CDIB and tribal membership for approval. So is it correct that you don't have to apply for CDIB when you apply for membership in the Creek Nation? Valid question, Ron?
Yes, you don't have to apply for a CDIB card. Just citizenship, and like in the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation, they require you to apply for a CDIB card. It's not like that with the Creek. You do not have to apply for a citizen. I mean,
Okay.
for CDIB card.
Okay.
Two totally different things.
Okay. Shelley Bates says, we, my mother, myself, and my daughter, and my granddaughter, 4 people, okay, have had our application in since last year and called Friday to have the applications go forward. Didn't know we would have a picture made free. We had passport pictures taken. Should I go back to the Jinx office in person tomorrow for follow-up? Good question.
Yes. Yeah, if you did not have a picture taken, you can go up there and take a picture or give them that passport photo.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Okay. And
Angela,
yes.
can I say something?
Yes.
You also don't have to have your picture on your ID. It's up to you. Just kind of remember that. If you don't want to use that in the airport or at a bank or whatever, you don't have to have that photo ID. But if you do, you definitely want the photo on it.
Very good. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, I think we have come to the end of a majority of the questions that we are over
we
time.
haven't. No, I have a question. I have my hand up.
I didn't see your hand, Terry.
Well, all right, get it straight now.
Just come on with your question, okay?
Ron, I had a question. It's kind of wild, but I just thought of something as you were talking about this stuff. And one of the things, or one of the records that came to my mind were the proof of airship records. And would they be useful in securing citizenship, or is just something you have to go strictly by that DAWS card?
Okay, the proof of death and airship records are vital. I mean, they still use them. I love them. I really do. So
do I.
Those records are excellent. I mean, it's not necessary if you can have that direct link. Sometimes they're necessary, period. Mm-hmm. Okay, but they're vital. It's called a proof. Let me try to type this out.
Yes, Ron, you and Terry are talking about a set of records that many beginning researchers may not know what that is. That is a different record set. It's different from DAWS. And it's used in some cases where maybe something isn't clear in the lineage. But where do people locate those proof of death and airship records? Where are they located?
Well, I have found many on Ancestry. While looking for a DAWS card, if you're familiar with Ancestry and you pop in a name and you get on the side, you get this little window of all the extra documents pertaining to that individual. And the proof of airship, a Creek Freedman proof of airship record will show up. What's extraordinary about it is that I believe the Creek Nation is the only ones where I've seen these.
Because they're
Chickasaw Nation, Choctaw, Cherokee Indian, just Creek.
Yeah. Eli, you had something to say about that?
Yeah, the proof of death and airship records are tied to some judgment payments that pertain only to the Creeks. That's why they exist. Okay. I will say this, though. Do not forget to look up court records, which are acceptable to the Creek Nation. And so you have something in there where you can't prove a child is the daughter or child of somebody, but you find it in a inheritance record or a court record or a judgment record or something like that. If you can get that courthouse to certify you got that record from that office, from that courthouse, they would use those records in the citizenship office. An example, my father went by Elijah and Eli both times. And so I had to get records out of McIntosh County, actually, that showed the airship of his parents and use Elijah, on and on. And they were able to accept them, but they have to be stamped and certified by that courthouse.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you for clearing
excellent.
that.
Those are excellent records, those court records. I had to go to, I went and got some documents for a guy named Renty. And there was a confusion about okay, this is spelled this way and this way. But when I went to that courthouse and got some land records, they had both the names, how he spelled it on there. So that was excellent record. That.
You know, you guys are making a point, and it's a great one, because I've always thought in the course of the Dawes Commission's work, they use misspelling different spellings as a way to exclude people. And so having to prove the different spellings for people who are essentially illiterate becomes essential for proving your case of lineal descent. And so it just brings in a whole nother element, because most of the cases will not be just black and white, straightforward. You're always going to have some little twists and turns in it in order to get to that point where you can prove you descend from an individual.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I will say, this is really bad when you're dealing with the full bloods at the Creek Nation, because they have those Indian names and they have to pull up what's called the individual Indian money accounts that the federal government has. And in there would be 10 different spellings for the same person.
Wow.
And the citizenship office has to work its way through saying, okay, this makes sense. And a lot of times it's a judgment call that they make, on that.
Wow.
So, but the court records, don't forget that they exist. Also, your church records, your baptism records they use. They also use your school records. Your school, when you're in elementary, junior high, high school, those records that are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old at this point, they allow those records too.
Especially in those complicated cases. A final question here, and we're going to have to wrap it up eventually. Wilder wanted to know, is that in the same vein as those who receive payments from the Creek Nation, if we have proof of those payments? And I guess those are some of those per capita payments, and there are some per capita.
Yeah, the 1971 judgment roll, they use that very lightly, but they still go on it and look at it, because behind that record is actually a whole bunch of applications that were filed, including the proof of definition forms. So if you usually see a proof of definition form, you'll see that person name listed on the 1971 judgment fund, collecting for whatever per capita payment that was about.
Wow.
So,
That's very helpful. Well, listen, everyone, we're almost out of time. Is Leetta here on the call? I did not want to close without her saying a few words of support or greetings to the group. She is the chief of the Bruner Band. Leetta Osborne, are you out there? I think
she's on the phone. She is dialed in. I don't know if you can see someone who dialed in.
I see someone on iPhone. It just says iPhone.
2821.
Okay, if you have, unmute yourself, and we would love to hear from you before we close everything down. And I don't. Okay, I see an iPhone person who dialed in. Let me see if I see others. I'll switch to the gallery and see. But Leetta, if you can hear us, please unmute yourself, and we would love to hear your wonderful voice. And if not, we are really at the end of our meeting. Ms. Van, would you like to have any closing words to the group?
Okay, I just wanted to say that give a thank you for everyone that came out today, and we do not have other virtual calls set up, but we may potentially have some others as this situation unfurls. So we want to encourage everyone that once you get your card, your tribal membership card, get involved.
Yes.
Okay. Get involved in your tribe. Go to different things. Again, youth services, go to intertribal council meetings, vote. Freedman sometimes can, even in small numbers, can be the difference in who becomes a chief, who becomes a tribal councilman. And it's happened before. And And again, I want to encourage everyone, support the Descendants of Freedman Association. Because, we've been out here fighting for you all, fighting for us for more than 20 years. We do need lobbyists. We need to have we need attorneys all the time. But we're grateful for the support we've had. I see some good folks out there that were working with us a long time ago, and it's good to see you all back on the call. So, but anyway, thank everybody for coming out here. I just got a text in from Sampson, and she says she can hear, but she can't get in. She can't unmute. I'm not sure why if she has to be unmuted by you
No,
or
she has to unmute herself, but I'm not sure which person she is here. There was
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the 405-593-2821.
Okay, and that's okay. If I see it, I'll do that. Otherwise, let's see here. I'm looking at all of these images. Well, we have a good group. We have 59 people in the room. We did have about 65 a little bit earlier. So,
Angela, one
yes.
more thing, if I can, quick. I just put in the chat how you can get the access to that proof of death and heirship. You call this number. I put it. Well, it's in the chat. Call that number at the Creek number Realty
Okay,
office.
hit the send arrow. I don't see it in the chat as yet, Ron.
Oh, well, it's typed in. Oh Lord, what's going on here?
While he's doing that, I put two examples of what a proof of heirship.
Oh, there are in the chat some examples that Terry has shared, and
well, the thing is, these what the Creek Nation have, those the ones that has been authenticated, proved, and they went through the whole process. Okay.
Right.
The ones online, oh yeah, that's what it looks like. The excellent right there. The ones online, those sometimes have not. There's a paper that they have on those proof of death and heirship papers. At the corner right, it'll have a stamp.
Hello. Okay,
Hello?
I'm getting a little interference from somebody else's
I think
voice.
that's your girl, Leetta.
This is Leetta. Okay, hold on one second, Leetta. Let's let Ron finish his statement, and then we'll switch over to you.
Okay. But that's how when you call that number, someone in your family, your grandfather, they had to die before 1959, on 1959 or before. Those documents that the Creek Nation have right now of those proof of death and heirship, if they died before in 1959 or before that, that should be documented there. Okay, it's documented there. But call that place. And now, these proof of death and heirship, sometimes they can range from 4 pages all the way to 20, 25, maybe 30 pages. I know my great-grandfather had probably like 20 pages in his. And those papers do cost. They're $1 a page. Okay.
Hopefully, most people will have a simple case. Let us hope so.
Absolutely. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ron.
Hey, y'all, did you still get that number? What's going? I don't know.
No, I haven't seen it, Ron, but we've got to move on. I'm going to go over and give Leetta a chance to say something to the group.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations. This is a wonderful, wonderful time to be a Freedman. Isn't it great? What I would like to say is we are still running in the election in Seminole Nation. If you know anyone that's a Seminole, whether it be by blood or free, tell them to get out and vote. We're voting for change. Sina Yeslis and for Sheila Harjo for vice. So we really got to get this thing to change so that all of these tribes can get together and we all can come together in a powerful way. Because the Seminoles need to move forward. I can't hear a word out of them. The chief hasn't said anything about this. And I don't even know if he's going to say anything. He has refused to talk on it at this point, but that's okay because he will be speaking sooner or later. But right now, we just need to get everybody out to vote on August the 9th on a Saturday. They can vote in Oklahoma City off of 240. They can also vote in Seminole at the Mission on August the 9th. We need to get as many people out there to vote as possible. So that's one thing I'm really would love to see everybody share that with your friends, your family that can vote or know anybody that is a Seminole. So we can get this matter settled.
Councilwoman Sampson, is Glorietta Baptist Church in Oklahoma City? Were there
yes,
people
it'll
will
be at Glorietta Baptist Church.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, from 7 to 7. Also at the Mission in Seminole. And then if you live in Seminole and you need to vote and you don't have a ride, call the tribe. They will pick you up and take you down there to vote.
Thank you so much. And it's good to hear a voice from our fellow freedmen from the Seminole Nation. We thank you. That was Leetta Sampson from the who is chief of the Bruner Band. And thank you for those warm words. I believe that we are, oh, my pleasure. I believe we are really at the end of this meeting. We've gone a little bit over, but that's okay. It's all been worthwhile. If there aren't any other parting words from anyone, I will stop the recording and close the meeting.
If I say to you, Columbus discovered America in 1492, if I was your teacher, you said, no, Columbus didn't discover America in 1492. There were Indians here. I tell you, you flunked the course. Strictly ghetto, nigga.
Getting it from the other side of the border for a price that is reasonable. I'm leaving no evidence when they rush my residence. Plus the drugs and the damn presidents. I'm not hesitant to commit K-line tactics. Got a room specially wrapped in plastic for Saran. I'm for Reagan like I was a Nicaraguan. I'm a contraband in 50 states in 2 countries. Steady spending my hustle from Monday to Sunday. Gotta keep the money coming in or it's curtains. Hurting the competition, leaving them in a fruit. Sworn to Spencer jury to match the test of right in the hard top. You know the March black. But I'ma continue to mix my ass from our pot. And you can't get over on me if I was hard not. I'ma watch you niggas ride in the street, man. Like Peter D, if I keep my heat, man. You gon' continue to hold a grudge like the prosecutor and the judge. I push fudge in my family, only God is who I trust. And bust 50 at those who wanna try to cross us. I'll be running slash from here to Japan. No money, no comprehending. Purchase from the black Mexican. Moving every day on your tracks, man. Important, extorting money laundering. I'll be running slash from here to Japan. No money, no comprehending. Purchase from the black Mexican. They don't really understand. Label me a contraband. Ever since first days, I put my hands in control substance. Hustle to advance, but not to lack. Trying to earn me a platinum plaque. Smoking Vegas back to back. I'm in no. Carrying fully automatics attached to extendos. Never giving up info. Good know my credentials. Living in residential, sacrifice only the bare essentials. Running off at the dentals, they had you in ballistics in my section. Slip in and out without detection, but still got question. Cost was off me 2 years in a new identity, the which protection. I told they neglected the fact that I'm a victim of the ghetto. Where I'm from, we don't tell it. We sell the shit with heavy metal. Put my foot to the pedal when the HBD is right behind me. Richard Rare, Carlos Rossi, Robbie, all in the niggas' face. Everywhere we go, we bring the pain. I just heard a word that my older cousin pulled chain. I'll be running slams from here to Japan. No money, no caprine. They purchase from the black Mexican. Moving you every day on your tracks, man. Importing, extorting, money laundering. I'll be running slams from here to Japan. No money, no caprine. They purchase from the black Mexican. Moving you every day on your tracks, man. Importing, extorting, and money laundering. I'll be running slams from here to Japan. No money, no caprine. They purchase from the black Mexican. Moving you every day on your tracks, man. Importing, extorting, and money laundering. I use my mouthpiece like a chopper, like Dennis Hopper and Western Federal. Best to stock your bonds, pop a copper limit, cause we don't settle for the bottom barrel. Keep my barrel blue and gray. Moving yanks to my front, man. Just like Reagan, cause I'm slanging coast to coast. From the Gulf of Mexico to Canada. Russian roulette, the black Mexican, then it's Canada. Without the baking soda, taking over your shirt. There you get 4.5 to a bird for the dirt. We'll leave your shirt wet up. I bust the shit that never shut up. On 20-inch bellas. One loves convicted dope sellers. That is sat down and pleaded to fifth. Game thick like a brick of yay. Every day up on the turf. In the dirt is where I wallow. So I suggest you don't tilt across gang, cause I ain't with a brain, man. My game is sharper than guillotine.